Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Executive Vice President, Cloud and Enterprise, Scott Guthrie.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of Build. We now live in a mobile-first, cloud-first world. Yesterday, we talked about some of the great innovations we're doing to enable you to build awesome client and device experiences. Today, I'm going to continue that conversation and talk about how you can power those experiences using the cloud. Azure is Microsoft's cloud platform and enables you to move faster and do more. A little over 18 months ago, here in San Francisco, we talked about our new strategy with Azure and our new approach. A strategy that enables you to use both infrastructure as a service and platform as a service capabilities together. A strategy that enables developers to use the best of the Windows ecosystem and the best of the Linux ecosystem together. And one that delivers unparalleled developer productivity and enables you to build great applications and services that work with every device. And since then, we've been hard at work fulfilling that promise. Last year was a major year for Azure. We shipped more than 300 significant new features and releases. 2014 is going to be even bigger. In fact, this morning during the keynote, we have more than 44 new announcements and services that we're going to be launching. It's going to be a busy morning. Beyond just features, though, we've also been hard at work expanding the footprint of Azure around the world. The green circles you see on this slide here represent Azure regions, which are clusters of data centers close together and where you can go ahead and run your application code. Just last week, we opened 2 new regions, one in Shanghai and one in Beijing. Today, we're the only global major cloud provider that operates in mainland China. And by the end of the year, we'll have more than 16 public regions available around the world, enabling you to run your applications closer to your customers than ever before. As we've seen our features and footprint expand, we've seen our adoption of Azure dramatically grow. More than 57% of the Fortune 500 companies are now deployed on Azure. Customers run more than 250,000 public-facing websites on Azure, and we now host more than 1 million SQL databases on Azure. More than 20 trillion objects are now stored in the Azure storage system. We have more than 300 million users, many of them, most of them actually enterprise users, registered with Azure Active Directory, and we process now more than 13 billion authentications per week. And we have now more than 1 million developers registered with our Visual Studio Online service, which is the new service we launched just last November. Let's go beyond the big numbers, though, and look at some of the great experiences that have recently launched and which are using the full power of Azure and the cloud. Titanfall was one of the most eagerly anticipated games of the year and had a very successful launch a few weeks ago. Titanfall delivers an unparalleled multiplayer gaming experience powered using Azure. Let's see a video of it in action and hear what the developers who built it have to say.
Traditionally, building any sort of server technology has been pretty difficult for any developer. We saw cloud computing as an opportunity to introduce hands-off, scalable, on-demand resources so game developers could focus more on the game.
What that means is there's data centers all over the globe, and when you start up the game, it figures out where you are and what the best connection to which data center you have is. And it'll spin up a server, a dedicated server in a server farm for you, fast connection with, fast CPUs.
We can maximize what we're doing, knowing full well that on the back end, we have power there to take advantage of the game.
It makes matchmaking really quick, and then once you're in the game, it's a really consistent experience.
It's a more even experience. There's no host advantage. There's no worry about who's hosting what, and do we have to now reserve performance on everybody's machine.
So you don't have people doing lag switch killing, you don't have host migration, you have just solid gameplay that's fair for everybody. If anyone asks for a server, just throw them a server, throw them a server, throw them a server. And then we replenish that pool from the cloud. And so when we need another one, we just grab it down, put it in our pool, and then hand it out to somebody. So it's this constantly available set of servers all over the globe for anyone.
But one of the things we're seeing that's really amazing about Titanfall is the idea that a lot of the AI and the non-player characters are actually powered by the server.
That would not be feasible to do on a game that's client-hosted.
For the first time, I think users are seeing why server technology is really going to make next-generation gaming that much better.
One of the key bets that the developers of Titanfall made was to rely for all the game sessions on the cloud. In fact, you can't play the game without the cloud. And that bet really paid off. As you heard in the video, it enables much, much richer gaming experiences, much richer AI experiences, and the ability to tune and adapt the game as more users use it. And to give you a taste of the scale, Titanfall had more than 100,000 virtual machines deployed and running on Azure on launch day. Which is sort of unparalleled size in terms of for a game launch experience. And the reviews of the game have been absolutely phenomenal. Another amazing experience that recently launched and was powered using Azure was the Sochi Olympics delivered by NBC Sports. NBC used Azure to stream all of the games, both live and on demand, to both web and mobile devices. This was the first large-scale live event that was delivered entirely in the cloud, with all of the streaming and encoding happening using Azure. Traditionally with live encoding, you typically run that in an on-premises environment because it's so latency dependent. With the Sochi Olympics, Azure enabled NBC to not only live encode in the cloud, but also do it across multiple Azure regions to deliver high availability redundancy. More than 100 million people watched the online experience, and more than 2.1 million viewers alone watched it concurrently during the US versus Canada men's hockey game match, a new world record for online HD streaming. Really excited to invite Rick Cordella, who's the Senior Vice President and General Manager of NBC Sports Digital, on stage to talk about us a little bit about the experience and what it meant. So first question I had, just kind of, can you tell us a little bit about what the Olympics means to NBC?
It's huge. I mean, even looking at that video right there, I'm taking back to a month ago and how special it is, you know, what it means to the athletes. But what it means to NBC is big. It's enormous for our company. Steve Burke, our CEO, calls it the heart and soul of the company. And consider how much content NBC, how many events NBC is connected to. That's a pretty bold statement. 6 months out, we actually take our peacock icon and adorn it with the Olympic ring. So for every piece of content that appears on the NBC broadcast network, the Olympic rings are present. It's big for our company.
That's awesome. Can you talk a little bit about the elastic scale and how the cloud is kind of key to enabling it?
Sure. You mentioned that semifinal game between the U.S. and Canada that Friday afternoon. To be able to scale to that massive amount of volume is enormous, setting records. You go from a curling match, which may have just one stream going on, to over 30 concurrent streams. And then, oh, by the way, you have 5 EPL games happening at the same time, a PGA Tour tournament that's happening. And you really need that planning to go into place as we scale out across 2,000 plus events for the NBC Sports Group.
Cool. And can you talk just a little bit in terms of, you know, clearly it's a big deal for NBC. Like, how critical is it to have an enterprise-grade platform deliver it?
The company bets about $1 billion on the Olympics each time it goes off. and we have 17 days to recoup that investment. Needless to say, there is no safety net when it comes to putting this content out there for America to enjoy. We need to make sure the content is out there, that's quality, that our advertisers and advertisements are being delivered to it. There really is no going back if something goes wrong.
Cool. I'm glad it went well.
Yeah. No, we have, I mean, Azure, honestly, I know I'm speaking here, but Azure really played a critical role in this happening. It's not as if you can just pick a company out there that has a product that you don't trust to pull off an event of this magnitude. These are the largest digital events that any company pulls off. And we're really happy that we work closely with Microsoft Azure this time around.
Great. Thanks, Rick.
Cool. Thanks, Scott.
Cool. So we've talked at a high level about what you can do with Azure. Let's now dive into the specifics. One of the things that makes Azure unique is its rich set of infrastructure as a service and platform as a service capabilities, and how it enables developers to leverage these features together to build great applications that can support any device. And let's go ahead and look at some of the great new enhancements we're releasing this week in each of these different categories. First up, let's look at some of the improvements we're making with our infrastructure features and some of the great things we're enabling with virtual machines. Azure enables you to run both Windows and Linux virtual machines in the cloud. You can run them as standalone servers or join them together to a virtual network, including one that you can optionally bridge to an on-premises networking environment. This week, we're making it even easier for developers to create and manage virtual machines in Visual Studio. Without having to leave the VS IDE, you can now create, destroy, manage, and debug any number of VMs in the cloud. Prior to today, it was possible to create reusable VM image templates, but you had to write script to manually attach things like storage drives to them. Today, we're releasing support that makes it super easy to capture images that can contain any number of storage drives. Once you have this image, you can then very easily take it and create any number of VM instances from it, really fast and really easy. Starting today, you can also now easily configure VM images using popular frameworks like Puppet, Chef, and our own PowerShell and DSC tools. These tools enable you to avoid having to create and manage lots of separate VM images. Instead, you can define common settings and functionality using modules that can cut across every type of VM you use. You can also create modules that define role-specific behavior. And all these modules can be checked into source control, and they can also then be deployed to a Puppet master or a Chef server. And one of the things we're doing this week is making it incredibly easy within Azure to basically spin up a server farm and be able to automatically deploy and provision and manage all of these machines using these popular tools. And what I want to do here is invite Mark Ruzinovich on stage to actually show off how you can use all this functionality and some of the cool things you can now do with it. Here's Mark.
Hey, I thought we were going to wear black today, Scott.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Morning, everybody. So let's get started. I'm going to show you how easy it is to create a virtual machine from inside of Visual Studio here by going to the Server Explorer, going down to Virtual Machines, right-clicking, and then you can see a new menu item there, Create Virtual Machine. Clicking it launches a wizard experience that looks a lot like the Portals wizard experience, but I'm doing it right from here inside of Visual Studio. First step, pick a subscription to deploy into. Second step, pick an operating system image. I'm, of course, going to pick the best one on this list, the latest version of 2012 R2. Then I pick a virtual machine name. So I'll give it a nice, unique name here. Provision a user account to log into the machine if I need to. Either create a new cloud service or deploy into an existing cloud service. I'll go ahead and pick an existing one. Then pick a storage account into which the operating system disk gets created. And I'm going to, again, pick an existing storage account. Press Next. And the final step would be to configure any network ports that I want to open up on the machine. But I'm good with the default, so I'll just press Create and let it launch. And in a few minutes, we'll have a virtual machine ready to go. But that wouldn't be that cool if that's all you could do from Visual Studio, is just create and delete virtual machines. What's even better is that you can also debug your virtual machines right from inside of Visual Studio from your desktop. And to demonstrate that, I've got a web service rich client application here. It's an expense submission application. You can see I've loaded up the client and the service into Visual Studio. I'm going to launch the client here, just so you can see what it looks like. And it's already pre-populated here with some expenses from my day yesterday here in San Francisco. Now you can immediately see that something's wrong. And that is when I go to a Mexican restaurant for lunch, the margaritas that I drink come out to way more than $12. So I'll fix that right there. And now let me go switch to the virtual machine that the web service is running, and you can see right here it's ready for an expense submission. Then I'm going to switch back, and let's just presume that I've got a bug inside of the submit expense method up in that service. And here you can see submit for approval. I'm going to set a breakpoint right there at the entry point. And now my next step is to connect Visual Studio up to that machine in the cloud so I can interactively debug it. The first thing I need to do is to enable debugging in that virtual machine. And you can do that inside of Visual Studio by clicking on a virtual machine and selecting the Enable Debugging menu item. What this does is takes advantage of the Azure agent that sits inside of the virtual machine that I created to dynamically inject the Visual Studio debugging client. And once it's injected, then I can go ahead and use Visual Studio to connect to it and debug the code that's running inside that virtual machine. That machine that's running that expense service already has the debugger agent injected into it. So all I have to do is right-click, say Attach Debugger, and now I'm going to retrieve a list of processes running in that virtual machine. The one I'm interested in is the one running the service, which is right here, Expense IT Service. I press Attach. And at this point, you can see Visual Studio is ready to hit that breakpoint. So when I go back to the rich client and click Submit, you see I just hit the breakpoint live, and now I can debug as if this thing was on my local desktop. So no more installing Visual Studio in the server. So the next thing that Scott talked about was the power of creating VM images from your running VMs that consist of complex setups with multiple disks. I've got a virtual machine up here called a rig VM Build B, and you can see that it's got an OS disk and a whole bunch of data disks attached to it. If I wanted to create multiple versions of this with those copies of the data on that disk, of course I could scrape together PowerShell scripts to do it. But with the new commandlets that we've got and the new REST APIs we've got in Azure, I can do that very easily. And so here's a PowerShell command that invokes the Save Azure VM Image commandlet. I'm going to go ahead and click that, and what that's going to do is launch off a capture of that VM into a VM image that I can then deploy from. I've already actually created a VM image from that machine, and I'm going to reference it right here. You can see this is new Azure VM with a config here that specifies an image name, and that image name is the image name of a previous capture. What this is doing is provisioning a new copy from that, a new VM instance from that VM image capture that I'd made previously. And as Scott had mentioned, one of the cool scenarios for this is if I've got a test environment where I want to test multiple different copies, maybe throw different tests at each one in parallel, I can go stamp out multiple instances of that same VM image. Another way to use this, though, is kind of as a snapshot restore capability. So if I'm debugging and I want to go back to a previous point in time, I can capture an image at a good state, go do some work in the VM, then delete that VM and create a new instance back from that previous state. So two really cool scenarios enabled with this, just with those simple commands. I'll go back to the portal now to see if we can see that VM coming up, spinning up, and there it is, a rig DB VM. Hold on, let me refresh. And we should see that VM show up here, and there it is. It's retrieving status. There we go. Starting. This is the VM that I just provisioned. If I go take a look at its details, you can see that it's got all those disks just like that original one did, just with a simple command. Now, the final thing I want to talk about is the integration with configuration management systems, specifically in this case, Puppet. With the collaboration with Puppet Labs, we've made it very easy to go and create Puppet Masters from within Windows Azure by adding a Puppet Master image to our platform image repository. So you can see down here, we've got a Puppet Labs section, and if I click that, I'll be able to launch a Puppet Enterprise Puppet Master server right inside of Windows Azure. But we've also made it easy to create Puppet agents, machines running the Puppet agent that connect to a Puppet Master. And that's what I'm going to do now, is switch over to here and create a Windows-based virtual machine. Give it a name, type in my name and password, press next. And at this point, I'm going to see if the defaults work, if nobody's taken that name. And the final step is to install the VM agent. If we've got the VM agent installed, we can use, again, that same agent technology to inject other code into that VM. And the one that I'm going to inject for this demo is Puppet. You can see we've also partnered with Chef to get Chef agent support in there. And now, at this point, all I have to do is tell it where the Puppet Master is. And I'll just type in an example Puppet Master name. And at that point, when I go and provision that virtual machine, that Puppet agent is going to launch and connect to that Puppet Master, and I'll be able to manage it from there and deploy code into it. To actually show you deploying code into virtual machines on Azure from a Puppet Master, I'm going to invite up Luke Canese, the CEO of Puppet Labs, to take us further into the demo. Luke?
So we at Puppet Labs exist to help you automate the configuration and ongoing management of your, as we like to think of them, stupid computers. And the goal is to allow you to do a lot less firefighting and a lot less script running and a lot less maintenance of things like golden images and things like that, and a lot more time getting your software in front of your users more often, more quickly, and with a lot less hassle. One of the great things about Puppet is that it works on physical machines, virtual machines. It works in the public cloud. It works on private cloud. And really any combination of that. It works on pretty much any operating system you want to manage. Anything you're not embarrassed to admit you run, we can probably manage it, whether it's a network device or a firewall or a standard computer. And does this at massive scale. We've got tens of millions of machines under management by Puppet, and we've got sites that are more than 100,000 servers managed by just one Puppet infrastructure. We've got great companies who are using Puppet to do interesting work with their data centers, including NASA, GitHub, Intel, Bank of America, and a lot more. So we're excited to bring Puppet Enterprise to Azure, and I'm going to give a small example of what it looks like to use it here. So this is a relatively standard, this is just the normal interface to using Puppet Enterprise. You can see here we've got some machines under management, small number here, and the green bars are every time a Puppet agent runs and updates your infrastructure, it says, hey, something happened. In the blue case, it says, we actually had to make some sort of change to bring you into sync. In the green case, it just says, we checked, everything's great, we didn't have to do any extra work. So in this case, I'm going to surprisingly make some changes to our Windows servers. I'm going to go to the Windows Server group, and what we want to do here is we've got an example machine that is running, everyone uses the task manager for various things. I've heard there's a better version of the task manager out there. And so what we're going to do is see what it takes to update those. It's a pretty straightforward operation with Puppet. We go in, and in Puppet, the class is essentially the way of referring to the code associated with the function we want to do. So we've got a Puppet module named Microsoft Sysinternals.
Ah, you do have good taste in tools.
And with this, we associate this class as, hey, we want to do this work, the work associated with this, with all of our machines. And normally, this change would propagate out to your whole infrastructure in the space of probably around a half an hour. If you've got 100,000 machines that you have under management, you probably don't want all of them hitting your servers at exactly the same time. In this case, though, we've got the system running on a relatively tighter timeline. And so we go look at it, and now we've got the better, far more powerful version running. This is a very small example of what you can do. You can manage complete application stacks. You can manage the infrastructure, all the kind of laying the bits down so that the system works, up to I've got my whole application built, I've got my database, my application server, my web server, things like that. So it really is a powerful system for getting all the work done from the bare OS up to a functioning, running application. This is especially important in the cloud, where the whole goal here is if you can get your machine, your virtual machine up in 5 minutes, but it still takes you 3 weeks to configure the server, it kind of defeats the point. So the goal here is to get the speed of configuration at the same rate as the speed of building the machine itself. Mark?
Great. Well, this awesome collaboration between Puppet Labs and Microsoft, bringing Puppet into Azure, is enabling our customers that use tools like Puppet to get started on Azure using their existing processes. And I'm gonna, to talk about that a little bit, I'm going to ask on stage Daniel Sperling, who is from Getty Images, to talk about how this is helping Getty move to Azure.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks, Luke. Good morning, everyone. We're Getty Images. We serve more than 1.5 million active customers in more than 185 countries, providing the best conceptual and editorial content in the world. We brought stock photography into the digital age, pioneering the ability to license content and imagery online. We push the envelope every day. When a photographer around the world takes a brilliant photo, we want that photo to be available for anyone in the world within minutes. Because these assets that you see on the screen here, they have a job to do. They evoke emotion. Corporations around the world, companies of every single type, rely on us to help them tell their story. We also recently launched an embed product, which allows anyone, anywhere, free of charge, to utilize over 40 million pieces of our high-quality imagery for non-commercial use. This is our first step into the consumer market. Now, we ingest and manage millions of images and videos, with millions of new pieces of content added every single day. And with that, for Getty to succeed, technology must have the same scale, agility, and global footprint as our company does in order to support our massive content flow. From any corner of the world, from Tokyo to Rio de Janeiro. We're excited about the Microsoft Azure Cloud Platform, which works with our tools, such as Puppet. It gives us the global scale and infrastructure anywhere that we need it, be it Japan or Brazil. We today actively use Puppet for automation and configuration management. And this will give us the agility and consistency we need to move across environments when we burst from our data center into an external cloud provider, landing it right every single time. As our business grows, and our requirements expand, we will need to continue to support more content across more devices, and therefore our infrastructure needs to scale with us dynamically and without friction. For that, the cloud that we choose and the tools that we use must truly be open and seamlessly support both our Windows and Linux environments. That's why we at Getty are excited about the Puppet Labs and Microsoft partnership and the value that Puppet and Azure can bring to our business and our customers. Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
So infrastructure as a service gives you a very flexible environment and enables you to manage it however you want. We also actually, before I go there, a whole bunch of announcements here. You can see, as you hopefully saw here this morning with the infrastructure as a service capabilities, we've really made a bunch of improvements to it. And just from a short list here of a number of them, you saw Capture Deploy, the Visual Studio integration, and the PUP and Chef-it support. We're also excited to announce the general availability of our autoscale service, as well as a bunch of great virtual networking capabilities, including point-to-site VPN support going GA, new dynamic routing, subnet migration, as well as static internal IP address. And we think the combination of this really gives you a very flexible environment, as you saw, a very open environment, and lets you run pretty much any Windows or Linux workload in the cloud. So we think infrastructure as a service is super flexible, and it really kind of enables you to manage your environments however you want. We also, though, then provide pre-built services and runtime environments that you can use to assemble your applications as well, and we call these platform as a service capabilities. One of the big benefits of these pre-built services is that they enable you to focus on your application and not have to worry about the infrastructure underneath it. We handle patching, load balancing, high availability, and auto scale for you. And this enables you to work faster and do more. What I want to do is just spend a little bit of time talking through some of these platform as a service capabilities, and we're going to start talking about our web functionality here today. One of the most popular PaaS services that we now have on Windows Azure is something we call the Azure Website Service. This enables you to very easily deploy web applications written in a variety of different languages and host them in the cloud. We support .NET, Node.js, PHP, Python, and we're excited this week to also announce that we're adding Java language support as well. This enables you as a developer to basically push any type of application into Azure in our runtime environment and basically host it to any number of users in the cloud. A couple of the great features we have with Azure include auto-scale capability. What this means is you can start off running your application, for example, in a single VM. As more load increases to it, we can then automatically scale up multiple VMs for you without you having to write any script or take any action yourself. And if you get a lot of load, we can scale up even more. And you can basically configure how many VMs you maximally want to use, as well as what the burn down rate is. And as your traffic, and so this is great because it enables you to not only handle large traffic spikes and make sure that your apps are always responsive, but the nice thing about autoscale is when the traffic drops off, or maybe during the night when it's a little bit less, we can automatically scale down the number of machines that you need, which means that you end up saving money and not having to pay as much. One of the other cool features that we've recently introduced with websites is something we call our staging support. And this solves kind of a pretty common problem with any web app today, which is there's always someone hitting it. And how do you stage the deployments of new code that you roll out so that you don't ever have the site in an intermediate state and that you can actually deploy with confidence at any point in the day? And what staging support enables inside Azure is for you to create a new staging version of your web app with a private URL that you can access and use to test. And this allows you to basically deploy your application to the staging environment, get it ready, test it out before you finally send users to it. And then basically you can push one button or send a single command called swap, where we'll basically rotate the incoming traffic from the old production site to the new staged version. What's nice is we still keep your old version around, so if you discover once you go live you still have a bug that you missed, you can always swap back to the previous state. And again, this enables you to deploy with a lot of confidence and make sure that your users are always seeing a consistent experience when they hit your app. Another cool feature that we've recently introduced is a feature we call web jobs. And this enables you to run background tasks that are non-HTTP responsive that you can actually run in the background. So if it takes a while to run it, this is a great way you can offload that work so that you're not stalling your actual request response thread pool. And basically, common scenario we see for a lot of people is if they want to process something in the background, when someone submits something, for example, to the website, they can go ahead and simply drop an item into a queue or into the storage account, respond back done to the user, and then with one of these web jobs, you can very easily run background code that can pull that queue message and actually process it in an offline way. And what's nice about web jobs is you can run them now in the same virtual machines that host your websites. What that means is you don't have to spin up your own separate set of virtual machines, and again, enables you to save money and provides a really nice management experience for it. And then the last cool feature that we've recently introduced is something we call Traffic Manager support. With Traffic Manager, you can take advantage of the fact that Azure runs around the world, and you can spin up multiple instances of your website in multiple different regions around the world with Azure. And what you can then do is use Traffic Manager so you can have a single DNS entry that you then map to the different instances around the world. And what Traffic Manager does is it gives you a really nice way that you can actually automatically, for example, route all your North America users to one of the North American versions of your app, while people in Europe will go routed to the Europe version of your app. That gives you better performance and response and latency. Traffic Manager is also smart enough so that if you ever have an issue with one of the instances of your app, it can automatically remove it from those rotation and send the users to one of the other active apps within the system. And so this gives you also a nice way you can fail over in the event of an outage. And the great thing about Traffic Manager now is you can use it not just for virtual machines and cloud services, but we've also now enabled it to be worked fully with websites. And sort of to show off all of these great web capabilities, as well as some of the great improvements that we're making inside Visual Studio, I'd like to invite Mads Christensen on stage.
Hi, folks. I'm really excited to be here today to show you a few of the brand new features for web developers in Visual Studio and Azure websites. So let me start by creating a brand new ASP.NET web application. And as a new thing, as you can see, we made it really easy for you to provision both Azure websites and virtual machines directly from this dialog. You can even provision a new database directly from here, which lets you set up your entire development environment ahead of time. So now my project is created, and Visual Studio is provisioning Azure. But it's also now creating publishing scripts that I can use to automate my deployment. And I'm going to open it here in the brand new PowerShell editor in Visual Studio. I can make any modifications easily, and I can even use this in my continuous integration environment. Now let me switch to an existing website. So this is an ASP.NET application using AngularJS on the front end, and I've been building this with a few friends of mine. And if we just take a look here in the browser, we can see that this is called ClipMeme, and it allows me to upload animated GIFs and have text burned into the animations automatically, so it's easy to share those images. And we've been working really hard on this website, and my friends have asked me here, can you please just change the background color of the header of my website? I said, yes, of course I can do that. So the thing is, I can't really remember what is the style sheet that I need to find in Visual Studio, and exactly where do I find the rule set that I need to change. Normally what I would do is that I would open the browser developer tools here, and then I would make my modifications here, and when I'm happy, I would go back to Visual Studio, and I would do the same thing all over again. But now, I can simply just change directly here in the browser, and as I make the changes, Visual Studio automatically syncs any change I do in the developer tools. I'm just going to go with my favorite shade of blue here. Now, this is using a feature called Browser Link. And Browser Link is a two-way communication channel between Visual Studio and any web browser. So this works in Chrome, for instance, as we have right here. And notice how my favorite shade of blue has already been applied to the header. Because if I make changes in one browser's developer tools, Visual Studio and Browser Link make sure to stream that change into any other browser. So now here in Chrome, I'm noticing that I actually have made a typo here. I have repeated a word. So I'm going to use Browser Link again, and I'm going to put Chrome into design mode. So now, as I hover any DOM element in the browser, Visual Studio opens the exact source file and highlights my selection. Yes. So now it's as simple as simply just double-clicking the text that I want to change. And as I make the change in the browser, Visual Studio just follows along. That is cool. So this website is getting bigger and bigger, and I have a lot of JavaScript code in my project. Now, the problem with having a lot of JavaScript can sometimes be that to make sure that we're following the best practices all the time. So let's just open here one of my AngularJS directives. And notice here that Visual Studio is now running JS Hint directly inside Visual Studio. JS Hint is a static code analysis tool that helps me catch common mistakes. So in this case, I forgot a semicolon. That's easy to fix. And here I should use 3 equal signs instead of 2. I always make this mistake. So here we go. I save the document. The errors goes away. And I'm now pretty happy. Right? I think that I have a great website now, and I'm ready to publish. So as Scott was mentioning, I can now take advantage of a new feature, the new staging feature of Azure websites. So I'm going to publish to my staging slot here. And we're just going to hit the button. So now Visual Studio is publishing just my changes. And when it's done, it's going to open the browser. And if we just zoom in here real quick, we can see that we have the dash staging as part of the URL. So that makes it easier for me to find out that this is now my staging environment. So now, all my friends, they can now test the website in a staging environment. And when we're all happy and make sure that everything works, we want to move this into production. So to do that, I'm going to go to the Azure portal, and I'm going to hit swap. So what happens is that my staging environment is being swapped from my production environment. But some of my configurations, such as my SSL certificates and public domain names, they stay where they are. And it only takes a few seconds. It's already done. And now when we click the Browse button, we're now live in production. So let's actually just create a new meme here. I'm just going to drag in an image and give it some text here. So what's happening is that when I upload the image, the website is passing the image processing off to a background task. Now, this is something that's traditionally been a little bit problematic to do in a reliable and scalable way. But I'm now able to take advantage of a new feature in Azure websites called Web Jobs. And this allows me to run background tasks in the same context as my website. And you see, I already created one here called the GIF generator. I could write a web job in any language that's supported on Azure website. But let's go take a look at my implementation here. I've added a regular C# console application to my solution here. And I'm using the Web Jobs SDK, and that makes it really easy for me to listen in on any events that's happening in any of my Azure resources. And the rest of the implementation is just using regular .NET types and libraries. So this is really easy to do. And in order for me to publish my web job, I need to associate it with my website. Now, I've already done that. And it's as simple as going up to my web application and just make the association here to the GIF generator console app. And now the next time I publish my website, the web job is being published with it. Another cool feature that we get is we get a nice dashboard that shows me the invocation log. So here I can see every time my web job has run. Sometimes maybe there's a failure. And I can very easily go in, get the insights I need, see the input and the output, as well as a full call stack, so I can very easily diagnose and fix the issue. So now we're in production. Obviously, this website is going to go viral. So I want to make sure that I get the best user experience to all you guys. So I'm going to use the Traffic Manager, a new thing in Azure websites. And I can set up Traffic Manager in 3 different ways. I can optimize for performance, for round robin, or for failover. So failover is the scenario where I select a primary node, and in case of any failures, Traffic Manager is automatically going to route traffic to my secondary nodes. But since my code never fails, I'm going to optimize for performance. Now, I've already set up a Traffic Manager, so all I have to do here is to add my recent deployed website here into the Traffic Manager profile. And that ensures that no matter where you are in the world, you're always going to hit the data center closest to you. And now, if we load the website up again, we can see that we're being served from West US because we're sitting right here in San Francisco. So I just showed you how to easily create a development environment up front, use some of the new features of Visual Studio to create beautiful modern web applications, deploy them to staging for testing, then on to production, and now scaling worldwide. Thank you very much.
So as Matt showed, there's a lot of great features that we're kind of unveiling this week, and a lot of great announcements that go with it. These include the general availability release of auto-scale support for websites, as well as the general availability release of our new Traffic Manager support for websites as well. And as you saw there, we also now have web job support, and one of the features we didn't get a chance to demo, what's also very cool, is backup support, so that automatically we can have both your content as well as your databases backed up when you run them in our website's environment as well. Lots of great improvements also coming in terms of from an offer perspective. One thing a lot of people have asked us for with websites is the ability not only to use SSL, but to use SSL without having to pay for it. And so one of the cool things that we're adding with websites, and it goes live today, is that we're including 1 IP address-based SSL certificate and 5 SNI-based SSL certificates at no additional cost to every website instance. Throughout the event here, you're also going to hear a bunch of great sessions on some of the improvements we're making to ASP.NET in terms of, from a web framework perspective. We've got general availability release of ASP.NET MVC 5.1, Web API 2.1, Identity 2.0, as well as Web Pages 3.1. So a lot of great new features to take advantage of. And as you saw Mad's demo, a lot of great features inside Visual Studio, including the ability every time you create an ASP.NET project now to automatically create an Azure website as part of that flow. And remember, every Azure customer gets 10 free Azure websites that you can use forever. So even if you're not an MSDN customer, you can take advantage of that feature in order to set up a web environment literally every time you create a new project. So pretty exciting stuff. So that was one example of some of the PaaS capabilities that we have inside Azure. I'm going to move now into the mobile space and talk about some of the great improvements that we're making there as well. And one of the great things about Azure is the fact that it makes it really easy for you to build backends for your mobile applications and devices. And one of the cool things you can do now is you can develop those backends both with .NET as well as Node.js. And you can use Visual Studio or any other text editor on any other operating system to actually deploy those applications into Azure. And we make it, once they're deployed, we make it really easy for you to go ahead and connect them to any type of device out there in the world. Now, some of the great things you can do with this is take advantage of some of the features that we have which provide very flexible data handling. So we have built-in support for Azure Storage, as well as our SQL database, which is our PaaS database offering for relational databases, as well as take advantage of things like MongoDB and other popular NoSQL solutions. We support the ability not only to reply to messages that come to us, but also to push messages to devices as well. And one of the cool features that mobile services can take advantage of is, and it's also available as a standalone feature, is something we call notification hubs. And this basically allows you to send a single message to a notification hub and then broadcast it to, in some cases, millions of devices that might be registered to it. We also support with mobile services a variety of flexible authentication options. And so when we first launched mobile services, we added support for things like Facebook, login, Google ID, Twitter ID, as well as Microsoft accounts. One of the things we're excited to demo here today is Active Directory support as well. And so this enables you to build now applications that you can target, for example, your employees or partners, and enable them to sign in using the same enterprise credentials that they use in an on-premises Active Directory environment. And what's great is we're using standard OAuth tokens as part of that. And so once you authenticate, you can take that token, you can use it to also provide authorization access to your own custom backend logic or data stores that you host inside Azure. But we're also making it really easy so that you can also take that same token and you can use it to access Office 365 APIs and be able to integrate that user's data as well as functionality inside your application as well. And the beauty about all this is it works with any device. So whether it's a Windows device or an iOS device or an Android device, you can go ahead and take advantage of this capability. And what I'd like to do is invite Yavor on stage to show us how you can do it.
Thank you. Since we launched mobile services, we've seen some strong adoption and some great apps built on top of our platform, both across the consumer and enterprise space. If you're not familiar with it, mobile services lets you easily add a cloud-hosted backend to your mobile app, regardless of what client platform you're using. I'm here today to talk about an exciting new set of features that makes mobile services even more compelling, especially in the enterprise space. Let's start in Visual Studio. We've added a new project template that lets me build my mobile service right from within VS. And what's even cooler is I can now use any .NET language. And our framework is built on top of ASP.NET Web API, which means I can bring my existing skills, my existing code, and I can leverage the power of NuGet. Now, we already have a project ready here that I created using the template. And you notice it has a simple structure, contains only the things I need to know about. I have a to-do item, and that's going to be the model for my service. And the next thing I need is a table controller that lets me expose that service, that model to the world in a way that all our cross-platform clients understand. And then it wouldn't be mobile services without great support for scheduled jobs. So I'll go ahead and press F5. We finally addressed one of our top customer requests and added support for local development. We got a documentation page right here with information about your API. And then we've even added a test client right inside the browser that lets you try it out. I'll go ahead and send a request. And I've hit a breakpoint in my server code. Local and remote debugging now both work great with mobile services. Now, as expected, I get my result back in the browser. But you know, we've all built to-do lists with mobile services. What I really wanted to build for you today is a powerful line of business app with the cloud. So I was preparing here on the podium, and I noticed the mouse I was given is pretty broken. So I thought, why don't I build a facilities app that I can use to report the issue, and then the facilities department can use that same app to take care of it. This is easy to do with mobile services. The first thing I'll do is I'll add a class for my model, and let's call it facility request. And by default, this is going to use Entity Framework code first, backed by a SQL database. However, as Scott mentioned, we support a variety of backend choices, including MongoDB and table storage. The next step is to add a controller. We have first-class support for the mobile services table controller right here in the scaffolding dialog. You can pick the model class I created, pick the context, and just press Add. It's that easy. Now, this wouldn't be a great enterprise app without great enterprise security. So let's assume for a moment that my company has already federated our on-premise Active Directory with Azure. Adding authentication to my API is as easy as adding an attribute to my controller. Now that we're done with our service, let's go ahead and publish. We've integrated mobile services in the same publishing experience that Mads demoed earlier. And I can pick an existing service, or I can even create a new one right from VS. But let's pick one I've created previously. And when I publish, this will deploy my code to mobile services, which provides a first-class hosting environment for my APIs. Now, let's switch for a moment to the client app we built. You notice our app logic is abstracted away in a portable class library. And what that lets me do is easily reuse that code across a variety of client platforms. We're already taking advantage of the mobile services portable SDK, which gives me some easy data access methods, such as the one you see here, that loads up all the facility requests from the server. Now, what my app is actually missing is support for authentication. So let's go ahead and do that. I can take advantage of the Active Directory authentication library, which gives me a native, beautiful login experience on all my favorite clients. I can then pass the authentication token to the mobile services backend, so then my user is logged into both places. Let's launch this in the simulator. The first thing it'll ask me to do is log in with my company account. And once I'm signed in, it's going to go and call out to our on-premise Active Directory and start pulling graph information about my user, as you see here. Now, we don't have a facility request created yet, so let's go ahead and do that. So it's a broken mouse on stage. And then we can even take a photo. There it is, missing a button. Let's take that picture. And when I press accept, the facility request will get safely stored in the mobile services backend. Now, we've added authentication with Active Directory, but what my app's users will really want is integration with all their other great enterprise services, including SharePoint and Office 365. For example, the facilities department might want to create a document on their SharePoint site for every request they receive. It's easy to build that for them with mobile services. Let's go back to our service project and to the controller we added, and we'll find the patch method. This method gets called every time a facility request gets updated. So I can very easily take advantage of the Active Directory authentication token to call out to this great new set of Office 365 REST APIs, as you see here. And they let me generate the document on the fly and post it straight to SharePoint. Now that we've made our changes, let's go ahead and publish. And while that's going, we can go back to our app and now play the role of the facilities department. So we get the request. We're going to take care of the broken mouse here. And then we'll take an after picture. There you go. Much better. When I press accept, my request will go through to the mobile service, and that will call out to SharePoint and generate the document. And we can verify that by heading over to our SharePoint site, our company SharePoint site here. And if I look inside the requests folder, you'll see there's a new document just generated just a few seconds ago using my company identity. The document itself contains all the great information that the mobile service sent over, down to the images. It's that easy to integrate mobile services and SharePoint. Now, there's one last thing I wanted to show you. We mentioned that our app's logic is a portable library. And what that means is I can use Xamarin to reuse my C# investments across Android and iOS as well. And in fact, we have the iOS project ready right here in Visual Studio. All I need to do is set the target as the iPhone simulator and hit F5. And I'll go ahead and switch to a Mac here that I've paired with my Visual Studio instance. And that's where the app is building and deploying right into the iOS simulator. And this is common in today's bring your own device world, where your customers are going to expect the same great enterprise features in their favorite device. There you go, the same app running in the iPhone simulator now. Thank you. So what you just saw was building a .NET backend locally, publishing it to the cloud, adding authentication with Active Directory, integrating with SharePoint, and then building a cross-platform client with Xamarin. The team and I are excited to see what you'll go and build with these great new features. And if you'd like to learn more, please come and see me in my session this afternoon. Thank you very much. Scott?
One of the things that kind of Yvor showed there is just sort of how easy it is now to build enterprise-grade mobile applications using Azure and Visual Studio. And one of the key kind of linchpins in terms of from a technology standpoint that really makes this possible is our Azure Active Directory service. This basically provides an Active Directory in the cloud that you can use to authenticate any device. And what makes it powerful is the fact that you can synchronize it with your existing on-premises Active Directories. And we support both sync options, including back to Windows Server 2003 instances, so it doesn't even require a relatively new Windows Server. It works with anything you got. And we also support a federate option as well if you want to use ADFS. And once you set that environment up, then all your users are available to be authenticated in the cloud. And what's great is we ship SDKs that work with all different types of devices and enables you to integrate authentication into those applications. And so you don't even have to have your backend hosted on Azure. You can take advantage of this capability to enable single sign-on with any enterprise credential. And what's great is once you get that token, that same token can then be used to program against Office 365 APIs as well as the other services across Microsoft. And so this provides a really great opportunity not only for building enterprise line of business apps, but also for ISVs that want to be able to build SaaS solutions as well as mobile device apps that integrate and target enterprise customers as well. And what I'd like to do is invite Grant Peterson, who is the CTO of DocuSign, on stage to talk about how they're integrating this functionality into their iOS app. Thanks, Grant.
Thank you. Good morning. DocuSign is the global leader in digital transaction management. Our platform, our global cloud platform, makes it possible for people to take personal and professional business and transact it for signature any place on the planet and keep it 100% digital. So I know a lot of you have probably experienced DocuSign, either doing a real estate transaction or possibly signing an agreement with Microsoft. We're excited to show that today. We have about 95,000 clients and about 40 million users worldwide using DocuSign every day in order to keep their business personal and professional digital. So today we're going to show an application. I would like to tell you that the DocuSign service is built entirely on Microsoft technology. The back end of our service is built on SQL Server. It's run on IIS. It's written in C#.NET. And we run our services, including Azure, as part of our infrastructure. So today, we're going to show this, and we're going to show it on a device that I never expected to show at a Microsoft conference, on an iPhone. So the DocuSign app has been downloaded about 3 million times on the iPhone. People use it every day to do transactions when they're on the run. And it has an exciting new feature that I'm going to show, which is authenticating with Active Directory. So we can use Active Directory now, allowing people to use their enterprise credentials, which they prefer for managing their devices and their access. And for the first time, they can log in with those credentials on a mobile device. Sorry, it's hard to type. I just have to say DocuSign and Azure trust each other. And I'm now authenticated into DocuSign using Active Directory. Now I would do a standard transaction that I might do on the run. Another exciting feature is I'm going to do a facilities request, similar to the demo we saw a little bit earlier. But that request, I need to sign, I need to make an additional signature and do it on the run from my SharePoint account. So I just pulled this document up on SharePoint with an integration there. And now I'm going to go ahead and sign that. So it's loading in the DocuSign service. It's always slower in a demo. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my signature in this document. I'm going to go ahead and draw my signature. Place it in the document. And I'm done. So what's fun about this is I was able to sign it on the run. Now, I don't want it on paper ever. And another great feature, not only was I able to sign it on the run using my Active Directory credentials, I was also able to pull it from SharePoint in order to get the document to sign. And I just saved it back to SharePoint, which also can happen automatically, so that our organization, from a legal perspective or from my own perspective, can gain access to that document at any point in the future. So no more paper gets lost, nothing hits the floor, and there's the signature in the document in SharePoint straight from my mobile device on my iPhone. So we were very excited about this integration project, and one of the things we were most thrilled with was how easy it was to do. Here's a small code sample of what it took to push the document back to SharePoint. So we found this project very approachable. We're excited about the tools, and we're extremely excited about what's possible on Azure today. So thank you.
I think one of the things that is pretty cool about that scenario is both the opportunity it offers every developer that wants to reach an enterprise audience. The great thing is all of those 300 million users that are in Azure Active Directory today and the millions of enterprises that have already sunk or federated with it are now available for you to build both mobile and web applications against. and be able to offer to them an enterprise-grade solution to all of your ISV-based applications. And that really kind of changes one of the biggest concerns that people end up having with enterprise apps with SaaS into a real asset where you can make it super easy for them to go ahead and integrate and be able to do it from any device. And one of the things you might have noticed there in the code that Grant showed was that it was actually all done on the client using Objective-C. And that's because we have a new Azure Active Directory iOS SDK as well as an Android SDK in addition to our Windows SDK. And so again, you can use and integrate with Azure Active Directory from literally any device, any language, any tool. Here's a quick summary of some of the great mobile announcements that we're making today. Yavor showed we now have .NET backend support, single sign-on with Active Directory. One of the features we didn't get a chance to show, but you can learn more about in the breakout talk, is offline data sync. So we also now have built into mobile services the ability to sync and handle disconnected states with data. And then obviously the Visual Studio and remote debugging capabilities as well. We've got not only the Azure SDKs for Azure Active Directory, but we also now have Office 365 API integration. We're also really excited to announce the general availability of our Azure AD Premium release. This provides enterprises management capabilities that they can actually also use and integrate with your applications and enables IT to also feel like they can trust the applications and the SaaS solutions that their users are using. And then we have a bunch of great improvements with notification hubs, including Kindle support as well as Visual Studio integration. So a lot of great features. You can learn about all of them in the breakout talks this week. So we've talked about web, we've talked about mobile when we talked about PaaS. I want to switch gears now and talk a little bit about data, which is pretty fundamental and integral to building any type of application. And with Azure, we support a variety of rich ways to handle data, ranging from unstructured to semi-structured to relational. And one of the kind of most popular services you heard me talk about at the beginning of the talk is our SQL database story. We've got over 1 million SQL databases now hosted on Azure, and it provides a really easy way for you to spin up a database, and better yet, it's a way that we then manage for you. So we do handle things like high availability and patching. You don't have to worry about that. Instead, you can focus on your application and really be productive. We've got a whole bunch of great SQL improvements that we're excited to announce this week. I'll walk through a couple of them real quickly. One of them is we're increasing the database size that we support with SQL databases. Previously, we only supported up to 150 gigs. We're excited to announce that we're increasing that to support 500 gigabytes going forward. And we're also delivering a new 99.95% SLA as part of that. And so this now enables you to run even bigger applications and be able to do it with high confidence in the cloud. Another cool feature we're adding is something we call self-service restore. I don't know if you've ever worked on a database application where you've written code like this, hit go, and then suddenly had a very bad feeling because you realized you omitted the where clause and you just deleted your entire table. And sometimes you can go and hopefully you have backups. This is usually the point when you discover when you don't have backups. And one of the things that we've built in as part of the self-service restore feature is automatic backups for you. And we actually let you literally roll back the clock, and you can choose what time of the day you want to roll it back to. We save up to, I think, 31 days of backups. And you can basically rehydrate a new database based on whatever time of the day you wanted to actually restore from. And then hopefully your life ends up being a lot better than it started out. And this is just a built-in feature. You don't have to turn it on. It's just sort of built in and something you can take advantage of. Another great feature that we're building in is something we call active geo-replication. What this lets you do now is you can actually go ahead and run SQL databases in multiple Azure regions around the world. And you can set it up to automatically replicate your databases for you. And this is basically an asynchronous replication. You can basically have your primary in read-write mode, and then you can actually have your secondary, and you can have multiple secondaries, in read-only mode. So you can still actually be accessing the data in read-only mode elsewhere. In the event that you have a catastrophic issue in, say, one region, say a natural disaster hits, you can go ahead and you can initiate the failover automatically to one of your secondary regions. And this basically allows you to continue moving on without having to worry about data loss and gives you kind of a really nice high availability solution that you can take advantage of. And one of the things that's nice about Azure's regions is we tend to try to make sure we have multiple regions in each geography. So for example, we have 2 regions that are at least 500 miles away in Europe and in North America, and similarly with Australia and Japan and China. And what that means is that you know that if you do need to fail over, your data is never leaving the geopolitical area that it's based in. So if you're hosted in Europe, you don't have to worry about your data ever leaving Europe. Similarly for the other geopolitical entities are out there. And so this gives you a way now with high confidence that you can store your data and know that you can fail over at any point in time. In addition to some of these improvements with SQL databases, we also have a host of great improvements coming with HD Insight, which is our big data analytics engine. This runs the standard Hadoop instance and runs it as a managed service. So we do all the patching and management for you. We're excited to announce the GA of Hadoop 2.2 support. We're also have now .NET 4.5 installed and APIs available, so you can now write your MapReduce jobs using .NET 4.5. We're also adding audit and operation history support, a bunch of great improvements with Hive, and we're now Yarn enabling the cluster, so you can actually run more software on it as well. And we're also then excited to announce a bunch of improvements in the storage space, including the general availability of our read access geo-redundant storage option. So we've kind of done a whole bunch of kind of deep dives into a whole bunch of the Azure features. Kind of go up stack now and talk a little bit about our programming languages and tools. And one of the great things about Azure, obviously, is you can use any tool, you can use any language to program against all of these services. But in particular, as you hopefully seen this morning, we've done a really great job in making sure .NET and Visual Studio provide a first-class experience and some real great productivity that you can take advantage of it. Beyond just the Azure integration, though, there's a whole bunch of other great improvements that we're making with .NET this week. You heard about some of them that we announced yesterday. One of the things I wanted to talk about a little bit today and highlight is some of the great work we're doing in the language space, in particular with a project that we've called Rosalind, which is our new .NET compiler platform. And I'm really excited to invite Anders Hausberg on stage to show it off.
Thank you, Scott. Well, thank you. Thanks, everyone. So Rosalind is the name we use for our project to create the next generation of our C# and Visual Basic compilers, and also the language services that are associated with them in Visual Studio. A key design point of Rosalind has been to change compilers from just being black boxes that take source code in and produce object code out, and turn them into APIs that allow everyone, all tools, to share in the intimate knowledge of code that only a compiler has. With Rosalind, you basically get full fidelity, complete API set that allows you to generate, transform, and analyze code. And this allows new experiences in our IDE, such as an interactive prompt, better refactorings, new diagnostics, and so forth. And because our C# and VB compilers are now written in C# and VB, we can also be a lot more agile when it comes to implementing new language features. So first thing I'm pleased to announce today is an end-user preview of the Rosalind technologies for Visual Studio 2013. I have that on my machine right here installed. Well, in fact, installing it is almost a no-op. It's just a V6 that you download and drop into Visual Studio. And when you enable it, you get a preview of what's coming in the next version of Visual Studio, the new language services, the new C# 6.0, the next generation of VB. So let me try and play with it a little bit. One of the things that, for example, now that we can more easily write new language features, we've listened to your request, and one of the requests that we've seen a lot is the ability, for example, to have static usings. Meaning, why do I, for example, have to write math.py all the time? Couldn't I just import math or using math and then simply say pi? So let's try to look at what that might look like in C# 6.0. So we can say using system.math here. And when I do that, you'll see a few things happen. First, things gray out here because it's redundant to both have a using and double qualification down here. But also, the IDE now suggests a refactoring where we can simplify the type name. And because of Rosalind, we can now show you a preview of what this refactoring is going to do. Here, it's just going to change it to pi. So if I say simplify type name, you see now that also the system.math ungrays because it's now being used. We could also look at, thank you. we could look at what other refactorings the IDE suggests here. We can introduce a local, or we could extract as a method. And again, we use Roslyn to show you a preview of what's going to happen to your code before it actually happens. Here, I'm just going to say yes. And then it drops me immediately into a Roslyn-powered rename experience where I get to name the new method. Now, let's say that I name it something that already exists in my program. Now we show you this might not be a good idea. If you do, here are the following things that are going to go wrong. But I might also, for example, name it a name that I could use, but I would be required to then qualify the identifier, and the IDE then shows me what would happen there. OK. So with Roslyn here today, we've thought deep about how can we take all of this functionality and give it the biggest impact possible. How can we allow you to use all of these fantastic features? And it's a great pleasure for me today to announce that effective today, we are open sourcing the entire Roslyn project. Thank you. Thank you. So let's go look at that. I'm going to go to roslyn.codeplex.com. And here you see the home page for the Roslyn project. It's still private. We haven't published it yet. Let's just look at what's in here. We can go look at the source code. Here. Go to compilers, for example. C#, source, compiler. There. And here we see the source code for the C# compiler, or part of it. Thank you. Also, here's the command I could use to create a clone of this repository. But of course, first, we need it to be public. What do you think? Should I press it? All right, here we go. Roslyn is now open source. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So now that Roslyn is open source, it'd be fun to take a look at what we can do with the Roslyn project. And of course, one of the things you'd be able to do is now implement your own language features. So why don't we try to implement a language feature here? Now, we can't be too ambitious in a keynote, but I was thinking that maybe we could introduce a new kind of string literals. In fact, how about angle-quoted or French-quoted string literals? So let's see if we can make the compiler support this kind of string literal, which, of course, it currently doesn't. You see that we get red squigglies and so forth. Now, let's try and save this. And I've already cloned the Roslyn repository on this machine. So let me try to open up the Roslyn solution, which is right here. Here you see all of our compilers, language services, and so forth. And we're going to look into C# code analysis. And we're going to go into the parser. And then we're going to grab the lexer, which is the thing that creates tokens out of our source code. And then we're going to go look at scan string literal. And this is the place where the compiler scans. And you see it can currently recognize single and double quotes. So we're going to add an extra case for French quotes. And then we're going to navigate to the actual implementation of scan string literal. And we're going to add one extra little case here for the opening quote. And then in the if statement that handles the closing quote, we're going to modify that. Those three little changes is basically all we need to do. So now I'm going to press Control F5 and build and launch a second hive of Visual Studio with my modified compiler in it that hopefully will support this fantastic new language feature. So let's see what happens here. Here is Visual Studio now running. You can see it's a different hive. It's a different color. I can open up my area calculator project, and lo and behold, we now support French quoted string literals. Thank you. In fact, we even offer up refactorings that use French quoted string literals, because all of these technologies are just sort of automatically integrated. So all I got to do now is package up a pull request and submit it, and we'll see if we can get our new language feature into the language. Of course, I will probably disappoint myself and not accept it, but, So now that Roslyn is open source, it also means that the Roslyn compilers can be used on other platforms. And when it comes to cross-platform, who better to invite on stage than our good friend Miguel de Acasa from Xamarin. Come on out, Miguel.
Thank you, Anders.
You bet.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I'm very excited to be here. As you guys know, we've been working on bringing C# and .NET to other platforms for almost 12 years. So to celebrate the occasion, to celebrate the open sourcing of Roslyn, we figured we would give everybody one of these nice C# shirts because we really like the C# language. Yep. Everybody knows it's better than the Xbox, so feel free to exchange them. But the way that we did it is that we actually created an iOS app. We created an iOS app, and the trick is you need to run this little iOS app to place your order. So if you want to get the app, just come to my session later today, and I'll show you how to do it. But this is the app. It's running on the iOS simulator, and you can pick a men's or a women's shirt. This is an app that we just put together this morning. No. So you order your shirt, and then you go to the checkout. Just press checkout here, and there's a little problem. The only requirement that you have actually is that you enter your email address before you order your shirt. That's all you need to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and enter my login address here. And I'm going to use the exact same change that Anders just showed on stage. So instead of using the regular, the regular quotes, I'm going to use actually these French quotes here. So I hope that you guys can see that. And I'm going to use this here. Now, if I try to build this project, you'll see that I get an error. This is because currently the IDE is using the Mono C# compiler. But since Roslyn was just open source, we've primed this machine to allow me to switch to a Mono installation that has the Roslyn compiler already installed and also has the patch that Anders just showed. So this time around, when I build the project, it actually succeeds. So, yeah. Now, you'll notice that the IDE style that has those squigglies. So unlike Visual Studio that already has Roslyn integrated, we haven't really integrated into our IDE yet, but we're going to do that. So that's our next step. So now when you run the application, you can actually, so this time around, it has my email address. I'll go here. I'll add my shirt. I'm just going to go with green, just like this one. And I'm going to check out. And this time around, it asks me for my login and password. So close your eyes for a second. And all right. Yep. And I'm going to deliver this to my place in Boston. And that is it. And I can go and brag. And that's it, guys. Now, we just wanted to give this little gift to Anders. It's a pre-packaged shirt with a nice C# button to celebrate the occasion.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
So one of the things that we've been focusing on with .NET in the last couple of years is, how do we embrace open source more? We've started with ASP.NET and a lot of the projects that we've put already into open source. And you saw with today's announcement, an even bolder statement, which is now the C# compiler and the Roslyn infrastructure we're contributing as well. One of the things we're kind of excited to announce today is we're actually taking kind of the next step in terms of open source. And we're actually announcing a new .NET Foundation that we're going to use as kind of the umbrella for how all these projects get contributed. And it's going to really be the foundation upon which we can actually contribute and even more of our projects and code into open source. And we're launching it today with the .NETFoundation.org website. And you can see here we've taken all of the Microsoft contributions we've already done with open source and are putting them under the Foundation's umbrella. All of the Microsoft contributions have standard open source licenses, typically Apache 2, and all of them, or none of them, have any platform restrictions, meaning you can actually take these libraries and you can run them on any platform and take advantage of them. And we still have, obviously, lots of Microsoft engineers working on each of these projects. But as kind of Anders highlighted in his demo, this now gives us the flexibility where we can actually look at suggestions and submissions from other developers as well and be able to integrate them into the mainline products. And it's something we're really excited in order to launch. We're also really excited that we have a whole bunch of other folks within the community that are joining the foundation as well. Xamarin is very generously contributing a number of their libraries, and we expect to see many other companies contribute as well. And we've got a great set of advisors that are joining and contributing as part of the foundation from a variety of different companies. And we think this is really going to be kind of take .NET to the next level and add even more energy and activity within the community. And so it's something we're really excited about. So we've talked a lot today about a whole bunch of features. I think we said we had 44 announcements this morning. I think we have 2 more left, and they're pretty big ones. And it's basically, what we're working on is not only providing lots and lots of these great features, but also an integrated experience for how you stitch them together and actually take maximum advantage of them. And as Azure is evolving to have more and more capabilities, we really want to have kind of a new experience that we provide our customers that enables them to see all these different services, to be able to monitor all these different services, to have a consistent DevOps flow across all these different services, and be able to take all these different resources and all these different services that you've seen here this morning and provide a really rich way that you can integrate them together and manage them as applications as opposed to a lot of disparate different features. And one of the things we're really excited to kind of show off for the very first time is our new Azure Management Portal, which kind of does kind of a very bold reimagining, if you will, of our portal experience, and we think is really special. And I'd like to invite Bill Staples on stage to show it off.
All right, thanks. What an exciting time to be a developer, especially a cloud developer. I mean, think about it. It's every hacker's dream. We have access to tens and hundreds of thousands of computers, petabytes of storage, millions of devices, and we can bring these things together into things we call apps. And sometimes we even make money from it. At Microsoft, we've built a first-of-its-kind experience that puts those apps at the center and seamlessly integrates across the developer, the platform, and the infrastructure services that you know and love. We've reimagined the cloud experience to be about your apps, your team, and you. Let's go take a look. Every great story has a beginning, and our journey today begins with a new Azure Startboard. Think of this as your own personal NOC. This dashboard is completely customizable. You can pin the parts, the tiles on here that show access to your services, your applications, the data that matters most to you. Now, we've put a few parts on here by default. Probably the first one you notice, the biggest one, is the service health part. This provides you a global view of all the Microsoft Azure data centers and their current health. Now, as a cloud developer, knowing the health of the services you depend on is job number one. It's especially helpful if in the middle of the night you get that page and you need someone to blame it on. Let's go ahead and check out what happens when I click on the service health part. We open what we call a blade. A blade is effectively a drill down of the information, the next level of detail, if you will, from that part. Here we can see the service health blade that gives me access to all of the Azure services and a summary view of their health. I can then click into any of these services, for example, compute, and we see all the regions where compute's deployed and the status in those regions. We could drill in and say, what's going on in West US, and we see, oh, there's no problems, everything's running. Now, if there was a problem here, I'm excited to say, we would actually show Mark Racinovich's contact information so you could give him a phone call. No, okay. You can tell I'm excited. That part was an exaggeration, but this collection of blades that we've drilled into is what we call a journey. And it's essentially a living breadcrumb. You can now go back in the journey to see the previous context that got you to the part you're focused on now. So I can quickly get from anywhere to anywhere. For example, let's say I want to look at the website service health. I can click on that, and we see now all the stamps where websites are deployed and their health. We think this kind of modern information architecture and navigational structure is exactly what developers need building services in the cloud. Now, another really popular request that we've gotten from all of you, in fact, we've been out talking to you in the hallways about what you think of the current Azure experience, and probably the #1 request is more insight into what the services are costing me. So you see the billing part here that shows me my primary subscription, gives me a summary effectively of all of my usage on the subscription throughout this current billing period, access to summary of the last 3 months, and I can even drill into a particular subscription and see a comprehensive view of the charges going on that subscription. I can see the number of days left, I can see the burn rate, how much credit I've used, and even cost by resource. So I can see how much storage, how much bandwidth, how much compute I'm using. We even have a line item detail of all the charges that are going to show up on your bill at the end of the month as they've accrued so far. Just think you're never going to be surprised by bills again. So creating new instances in the new Microsoft Azure portal is just as easy and simple as before. Right down here in the left-hand corner, I've got the new plus sign. I can click on that, and you can see I can easily access the set of services that we've implemented in the current preview. Access to our most popular PaaS website service that we demoed earlier, SQL databases, team projects. We've even partnered with our good friends at ClearDB to provide MySQL database access in the new Azure portal. Yes, this entire experience is completely extensible, and we're opening up to all of our partners in the Azure ecosystem that want to integrate to provide a seamless management experience for everything you want in the cloud. Browsing existing instances is just as easy. I click on the Browse Hub, and you can see I can browse by resource or even open up everything that I've got deployed and quickly access it. Let's go ahead. I've actually pre-created a team project to help get us started today that I want to use to show off how easy it is to set up a DevOps lifecycle. I've got a my build project. We'll click into that. And what you're seeing here is a blade that represents a team project. This team project is the same team project. It's powered by the same services that back Visual Studio Online today. We're happy to announce that we're integrating those into Azure to provide you a seamless and end-to-end DevOps experience. So this is a blank one. Let's go ahead and do some interesting things with it. For example, let's set up continuous deployment. That allows me to set up a deployment target so that when builds happen on this particular project, they'll automatically be deployed into a staging or production website that I can then go and test. Creating a new website is very simple. I just give it a name. Let's call it this one the Build Demo 2014. I can then, it prompts me for a repository and a branch to deploy from once build's complete. And with that simple process, I've now wired up a brand new website and a team project that can automatically and continuously deploy the code changes that I make. So let's go ahead and check in some code. To launch Visual Studio, I just click on the Open in Visual Studio part. You'll notice it opens up and prompts me to clone the repository. So I can do that in just a few seconds. And then we'll go ahead and create a new project. Now, this demo is more about the experience than the app, unlike some of the cool demos you saw earlier. So I'm just going to use the default MVC template for this purpose. I'll go ahead and just check that in. We'll call this the initial commit. And I'll tell Visual Studio to both commit this to my local repository as well as push all the changes to the repository that's in the team project in the cloud. With that, I'll minimize Visual Studio, and you saw right here on the blade, the commit lights up. I can drill into it. You can see a history of all the commits. In this case, I've just got the one I made, and we can see the initial commit. I can drill even further now and see all the files that were committed as part of that change, and even drill in further if you want. I'll show you maybe in a little while how I can see code view right here within the Microsoft Azure portal. All right. Now, if your projects are anything like mine, they're probably backed by some work items, a backlog of sorts, sometimes called bugs. And my team loves to file bugs against me. And it looks like they're already at it, telling me what to do backstage. They're telling me I forgot to instrument the code with application insights. We're excited to announce that we're also integrating application insights into the Microsoft Azure portal to give you access to not only the great system-level monitoring that you get today with Azure, but also application-level and user-level analytics for your applications. To do that, you simply add a few lines of JavaScript code to your app. So they're telling me, paste this in, and it's backlog item number 22. So let's go back. I could open up Visual Studio again to make that change and commit and sync it just like before, but instead, let's check out something pretty cool. Let's say I'm on an airplane or on a tablet that doesn't have Visual Studio installed, and I get a P0 bug I need to fix. Right here in the Microsoft Azure portal, I can drill into my source code. I can, for example, go into my shared views, edit the layout file where this JavaScript needs to go. And right here, I get a full screen, syntax-colored, IntelliSense editor in the cloud. I can paste in that JavaScript. And tell it we had, I think it was bug 23. Go ahead and commit that change. And in seconds, I've already committed that change to my repository without any tools necessary. Now, just to prove that's true, let's go back to our commits master. You see now I've got 2 commits, the first one and the second one showing up. I can even drill in and it'll show me diffs. I won't do that to save time, but and also I can come back to our build definitions. We can click on that and you'll see I've got the first build already triggered and running. As soon as that completes, it will automatically deploy into the website. And I've got a second build now queued with the change I just made in the Microsoft Azure portal that will run right after the first build's complete. Now, we don't have time to let that finish, but let me just step back for a second and remind us what we've seen. We've seen for the first time the fusion of our world-class developer services together with the platform and infrastructure services in Microsoft Azure in a way which no one else is doing. It allows you to have a complete DevOps lifecycle in one experience. Pretty phenomenal. I want to now transition to sort of the operations side of the DevOps lifecycle. We've got, I mentioned before, a new concept where we're bringing together the various services that you use to compose an application into one concept. If we go back to Browse, you'll notice we have something called resource groups in here. They're pretty self-descriptive. They're effectively the set of resources or services that make up an application. For example, I've got ClipMeme, a resource group here. This is the same website that you saw earlier in Mad's demo. And we've been running it here for a while to give me a chance to demo it. You'll see when I open up a resource group, I get an aggregated view of not only the website, but the team project and the database associated with this app. We show billing information, again, pervasive throughout the experience, to give you an aggregated view of all the charges associated with the services linked to this application. I can even click into monitoring and see, again, an aggregated view of all the operations that anyone who has access to my subscription has done against this particular resource group, spanning all the services. So I can see hosting plan, website updates, alert rules, etc., all aggregated in this one view. Let me actually show you something else that's pretty neat. Is up here at the summary view, I get the topology of my app. I can click on, for example, the website and move from the resource group aggregated view into the website view. The website blade has some pretty exciting new features to show that work with our website service. For example, I've got quick access to analytics. This is the App Insights analytics I mentioned earlier, where I can see which browsers are most popular for my site. I can see the sessions, the devices that people are using, even get a feel for which pages are slow or needing tune-up. With web tests, I can actually measure the experience my customers are having from anywhere in the world. I can configure, for example, locations to monitor from and pages to hit, and then I can see the availability trend over the past week and the average response time my customers are enjoying. We'll scroll down a little bit here and show, again, billing information pervasive throughout the thing. We can see this website's costing me about $30 a month, and I can even drill into pricing tiers to see what other options there are, maybe to save money or to add more capacity. Right now, I'm running in the standard tier. which comes with all these great features. And if I decide, based on the analytics that we saw earlier, I need to scale up, I can simply click on a medium-sized instance, choose Select. This is one of the most awesome features of the website service. You'll see we automatically scaled on demand, no configuration, no redeployment. You're now running with twice the CPU in memory. Now, if we go back up here, we can see not only can I navigate to the website, but I can also continue this journey on to see the database. And I can monitor its connections. I can scale it as well. I'll just take a pause for a second and remind us what we're seeing. We're seeing for the first time an application, a distributed application, side by side its website with analytics information. We're seeing a team project with complete builds, source code control, and we're seeing a database all in the same portal, all in one experience, without having to switch tabs, switch portals, do OAuth handshakes. It's all integrated in one. Now, this kind of rich experience, UI experience, is pretty darn powerful. But let's say I want to capture this resource group, maybe describe it in a declarative way so that I can check it into source code. Anyone on my team can then recreate that application anywhere in the world. Wouldn't that be cool? Without having to click around, all those mouse clicks? Well, I'm happy to say that today, with the Azure Resource Manager preview, you can do just that. And to show that off, I'm going to actually exit out here, and we'll go to a PowerShell command line. Now, we've had PowerShell support as well as cross-platform command line support for a while in Azure, but this is something new. This is something special. We've added a new set of commandlets that work against our new Resource Manager service to provide you a declarative way to quickly deploy applications and services. In this case, we've published some of the templates that we have as samples for you to quickly browse via command, via PowerShell. You can see we've got empty ASP.NET websites, PHP websites. We've even got these resource groups with a website plus a database in. Let's actually download one of those templates to start with and check it out. I've actually already downloaded one and edited it with some of the parameters that I wanted to provide as defaults to make things a little bit faster. But you can see this is effectively a JSON file, a declarative way to describe the application and then go ahead and run that. You'll see we've got a section here for describing the database we want to create, another section for describing the website we want to create. And even cooler, we can pass context between services. For example, pass the connection information from the database to the website when it's being created and configure that up so that I have a web.config with the database connection string in it by default without having to look that information up. Now, you could write code to do all of this today, but how much easier is it to just have it all right here in JSON and run a single command shell to execute it? Let's go ahead and see that in action. I've got a new Azure Resource Group commandlet. I'll pass in the template file, and it's going to prompt me for a couple of parameters I didn't supply. So in this case, let's call this the build RG demo, and we'll give it a location. Let's do West US right here next to home. You'll see what happens is we upload the template up into blob storage, we parse it, and then begin execution across the set of services. We actually execute the provisioning of these services in parallel to speed things up. And then we begin passing the context back and forth. Not only do we do that, but we also set up the ancillary services that support the website and the database, things like auto-scaling settings, alerts and notifications. Combining this with the Puppet and Chef features you saw Mark demo earlier provides you enormous power. Just think, you can now just deploy services that span platform services, infrastructure services, anywhere in the world, completely customize them, and deploy them in minutes. I just stood up a website and a database in less than a minute, without writing a single line of code. Pretty amazing, huh? Just to show it's real as well, I wanted to come back to our portal. You'll see I've got the resource groups played, and already lit up, we see the Build RG demo resource group that I created earlier. We can click into it. We see the website. We see the database. We see the event information. Again, I didn't execute this, I didn't create this in the portal, but we still get all the rich diagnostics information. And I even got a notification that something was happening on the command line. This could have been done by a co-admin on my account. I don't need to care. I've got all the same access to the information right here in the Azure portal. Now, to conclude the operations part of this demo, I want to show you an experience for how the new Azure portal works on a different device. You've seen it on the desktop, but it works equally well on a tablet device. In fact, it's really touch-friendly. Check it out on your Surface or your iPad. It works great on both devices. But we're thinking as well, if you've got a big screen TV or a projector lying around your team room, you might want to think about putting the Microsoft Azure portal as your own personal NOC. In this case, I've asked the Office developer team if we could have access to their live site blog. So they made me promise, do not hit the stop button or the delete button, which I have promised to do. This is actually the Office developer blog site, and you can see it's got almost 10 million hits already today running on Azure websites. So very high traffic. We've got, they've customized it to show off the browser usage on their website. Imagine we're at a team scrum with the Office developer guys, and we check out, how's the website doing? We've got some interesting trends here. In fact, there was a spike of sessions, it looks like, going on about a week ago. And page views, well, that's kind of a small part. It'd be nice to know which page it was that spiked a week ago. Let's go ahead and customize that. This screen's kind of special because it has touch screen. So I can go ahead and let's make that a hero tall. Automatically expands there. Now we see a bigger view. Wow, that was a really big spike last week. What page was that? We can click into it. We get the full navigation experience, same on the desktop, as well as, oh, look at that. There's a really popular blog post that happened about a week ago. What was that? Something about announcing Office on the iPad you love. Makes sense, huh? So we can see the Azure portal in action here as the Office developer team might imagine it. The last thing I want to show is the Azure Gallery. We've populated the gallery with all of the first-party Microsoft Azure services, as well as the great partners that we've worked with so far in creating this gallery. And what you're seeing right here is just the beginning. We've got the core set of DevOps experiences built out, as well as websites, SQL, and MySQL support. But over the coming months, we'll be integrating all of the developer and IT services in Microsoft, as well as the partner services, into this experience. Let me just conclude by reminding us what we've seen. We've seen a first-of-its-kind experience from Microsoft that fuses our world-class developer services together with Azure to provide an amazing DevOps experience where you can enjoy the entire lifecycle from development, deployment, operations, gathering analytics, and iterating right here in one experience. We've seen an application-centric experience that brings together all the dev, platform, and infrastructure services you know and love into one common shell. And we've seen a new application model that you can describe declaratively and through the command line or programmatically build out services in the cloud with tremendous ease. I'm so excited to show this off to you. I hope you love it. Go check it out, and we hope to hear your feedback soon. Thank you very much.
We're really excited about this new experience and really think it kind of is a capstone in terms of what Azure offers. It lets you bring together IaaS, it lets you bring together PaaS services and fuse them together into single applications. It enables you to kind of light up the entire DevOps experience from development to deploy to analytics and learning. We think really hopefully it will be transformational in terms of enabling developers as well as operations to be much more smooth in the cloud and really leverage the full power of the cloud going forward. And we're really excited that starting today, we're opening up the new portal to all Azure customers. And so everything you saw here in the demo just a few minutes ago, you'll be able to do on your own subscriptions starting this afternoon. We're also announcing the preview of our new Azure Resource Manager, which allows you to orchestrate and take all those different services and basically program them together and be able to do a single deployment of a resource group in order to manage it. That ultimately will support all Azure services, so you'll be able to compose, again, both IaaS and PaaS pieces together. I'm really excited to announce the first preview today. And then we're also excited to announce the general availability of Visual Studio Online, which was the back-end services that we use to power all of those DevOps scenarios. That's now generally available. You'll be able to use it both in the preview portal as well as in our existing management portal, and enable you to kind of take advantage of these developer SaaS services in a unique way. So hopefully you saw lots of stuff coming with Azure. We've got a busy year still ahead of us with a lot more features that will be coming over the next couple of events. But I hope you got a good taste of some of the things that are happening and some of the momentum that we have. You can sign up if you're not already an Azure customer today by going to azure.microsoft.com. And we'd love to have you give it a try, send us your feedback, and we hope you're successful with the cloud. Thank you very much. And here's Steve Guggenheimer to talk to our next keynote.
Thanks, Scott. Morning, everybody. Scott for hand. Good hand for Scott. He did a good job this morning, him and his team. My name's Steve Guggenheimer. Most people call me Googs. Our team is responsible for working with all of you, running this event, managing the 300,000 folks watching through Channel 9, and hopefully doing a great job of working as a great partner with all of you and all the developers around the world. So if you got feedback on things you like, send it my way. If you got feedback you don't like on things you don't like, I'm sure I'll get that too. Two things as we head into this section and they roll all these out. We've got more demos and machines in the short period of time we're going to use now than all the other keynotes combined. So once we get into demos, we're going to go fast. And two, everything we do is through the partner lens. So everything we'll show is based on work we've been doing with partners over the year and things they have allowed us to bring on stage to work with. So with that, I want to kick off. Scott this morning talked a little bit about developer conversations. And when we were here last year, myself and John, we started the conversation really around two things. We wanted to make sure we were having a good conversation with folks we'd never worked with before. And really, so sort of mobile-first, cloud-first developers who might not have ever used our technology, we wanted to make sure we were showing off and highlighting some of the things that we were working on that might not have been in the other keynotes. So Bing Entities, for example, or Office, or some of the other areas. We also wanted to make sure we did a great job talking to developers that have worked with us for a long time, in particular .NET developers, to show how we were moving forward in that area as well, and make sure we didn't, nobody thought we were leaving work behind or not doing a good job of working in that area as well. This year, sort of want to get a little more finesse into the conversation. Oftentimes people say, want to have the one dialogue that everybody can have. It just doesn't work that way, right? Most of the time, when we start the conversation, first part, what type of application are you working on? Line of business application, games, social, data, etc. And then what tool chain? Web developer, .NET, C#, XAML, Java, etc., or native developer, C++. So you have to start with the dialogue of the type of app in the tool chain, because these things just don't crisscross over easily. You got to have the right starting point. The second piece then is what things do people generally talk about? Once you talk about app and tool chain, there's really three areas we get consistent feedback on. So we'll go ahead and move the slide forward. The first one is help me support existing investments. With all of the work going on today and all the different devices, it's noisy out there. Let me reuse as much of the code, the skills, etc., whatever that I can. I don't want to have to start from scratch over and over. This is regardless of anything else. Two, in a cloud and mobile-first development environment, Microsoft, what can you do to help me? We're moving fast. Unless you can connect into what I'm working on, honestly, I don't have time. And then three, look, it's a cross-platform, cross-device world. How do you play in that world? We want to reach as many sockets as possible, as many users, machines, back-end services, and how do you participate? Those three conversations, regardless of app type or tool chain, are ones that we have over and over again. And so that's the framework we'll use for the rest of the demos this morning and the rest of the discussion. Now, two things heading into that. One is, across what we saw yesterday with Terry and then Scott this morning, we've taken a lot of feedback. And one of the areas we've been working on hard for a long time is making sure, at least when you work with us, we do as good a job as possible about making it easy to work across our technologies. So the notion of a common core, and you saw some of this coming forward yesterday with what Kevin showed in the Universal Project, being able to target embedded devices, phone, PCs, tablets, and making that much easier to do. With Scott being on-prem and in the cloud and being able to go back and forth. We've worked on this notion of a common core, which actually goes back to the NT kernel, which we started a long time ago with XP and NT, client server. Now it extends across all of the different platforms we run. And so things like identity, security, management, development on our platforms, hopefully they're as easy as possible and it crosses over. Now the corollary to that is oftentimes people think when you work with Microsoft, it's all or none. And one of the things you'll see throughout the sessions we do this morning, that's just not the case. There's lots of folks that work with us on one axis or another and don't use all of the tools we have and don't use all the services or all the devices. And you know what? We love that. We want to work with you any way that we can to do a great job, and then over time, we'll figure out other areas that might add value. So with that, I'm going to invite my colleague out on stage, Mr. John Shuchuk. Morning, John. How are you?
Steve.
So my nickname is Googs. His is Shoe. That's last year I said it was a really bad cop movie. This year would be part 2 of a bad cop movie. So with that comes lots of messiness, maybe some explosions, hopefully no blood. So we'll see how this one goes today. But let's see what we can get cranked through in under an hour and go across those 3 particular areas. So we're going to start with supporting existing technology investments. This is a conversation, in particular with folks we partnered with for either a short time or a long time, we want to make sure we do a great job on. So let's start with .NET applications, right? Desktop WPF applications. Yesterday, Terry did a good job on this, but I want to make sure folks know we don't just support it. We're continuing to invest in this area. There's work going on with the WinRT API set to make sure we're doing a great job for .NET. This is a set of applications from Morgan Stanley. They literally run hundreds of WPF apps. Tens of thousands of users. These are mission critical. You're compositing data and media. You're doing real time, and then you're using multi-monitors. If you're going to build an app like this, you're still going to do it in WPF. It's going to be a great experience, and that's where we start. And John, you know, when we work with these developers, what are some of the other questions we get as we start here?
Well, one of the things that we know about the great kinds of apps people produce with things like WPF is that they do all kinds of integration, the Office capabilities and so on. But often the question we get the most is, how can I bring these apps forward? How can I take advantage of new capabilities that are coming in Windows, new capabilities coming in the cloud? I actually have an interesting app over here. This is the kind of app you typically see in a professional office. Lawyers, doctors, in this case we've got dentists, and it kind of shows many of the different parts that people bring in here. Images, integration with the existing systems. This one happens to be based on local data, maybe local AD, maybe local SQL. And what I wanted to do is just kind of talk about one of the transformations that's underway for many of these WPF apps. So if I close this, actually, what I'm looking at here is Office 365, and you'll notice the dentist has a calendar, and they've got all kinds of different appointments occurring. And wouldn't it be great if we could take advantage of these things and if we could make it very easy to move these kind of advanced apps forward? I just want to show you how incredibly easy that is. Well, to kind of start these things, at the core of much of the work that we do in the cloud, Active Directory, which Scott just talked about, is one of the big enablers here. And we've already configured Active Directory to support this particular app. And one of the things I just wanted to drop down here and show is that we've given it full access to the user's calendar. And we've also given it access to various things in Active Directory. And to hook this thing up, we really just need this identifier. And let me go here into the code, and I'm going to drop that identifier. This is how Active Directory will know that this is the app. Now, here's where some of the magic really comes in. What we've got is a file up here. I'm just going to go add it to the solution. This is an existing item out there, and this is the Office 365 calendar service. It's a WPF-friendly version of the information necessary to go hook up, talk to all the REST interfaces. I've also used NuGet to configure it so that it does Active Directory login. So I have one more quick change I'm going to go make. I'm going to go into the view, and instead of talking to the local calendar service, I'm just going to say Office 365 calendar service. We've cut that over, and now I'm going to go run this thing. And here in kind of one quick, easy step, we've transformed this app, which was a kind of local app. It's now logging in the cloud, so I'm going to go log in there. And there we go. We've now loaded and done full integration with the cloud, moving this WPF app into this world of devices and services.
You know, and that's a good area, John. I think one of the areas we see in line of business applications in particular, there's been a lot of usage or connection to Office over time. And now as we move forward from the SharePoint conference last week, we announced a new set of APIs for the cloud. If we could bring the slide back up. For the cloud at api.office.com. And here, if you want access to documents, mail, calendar, people, social, etc., there's a new rich set of APIs out there that you can take advantage of, get access to all of Office 365, and you'll notice it's for iOS, Android, and Windows. So now we're extending what we can do with Office and Office 365 and bringing it back into the world of the applications that are out there today. Now that's sort of, I'd say, a really cool way to take, I'll say, a more current WPF app and bring it forward. Now sometimes we get questions. We saw a little bit from Kevin yesterday, or not, it was Kevin, it was in David's session, where they took a really old app and made it run a little bit better on Windows. You know, working with a partner, Mobilize.net, who's been working on the ability to update apps for a long time, they have a new product, WebMap 2. What they're allowing us to do is show that here for the first time today. And this isn't about sort of just connecting to Office 365. This is taking really old .NET applications and moving them forward. So John, why don't we play a little bit with that?
Yeah, so kind of let's even roll back the clock maybe a little bit further. Anybody recognize this? This was
great UI, John. You're doing
pretty
some good
hot
work
technology
here.
At one point in time. This is VB6 in action.
Yeah.
And Mobilize was one of our partners that helped us build a pretty cool tool which enabled you to take that VB app and then transform the code. And here's that same code now running as a WinForm app in C#. And so this transformation's been out there for a while. What we're really excited to announce today is the new shell that Mobilize has created, the Mobilize.net Studio, and in here is this WebMap 2 transformation. And what I've done is I've loaded up that transformed VB6 C# project, and here is the various files that are in there. And a cool new feature that they've added is this notion of related files. So here's that particular form we were looking at. And notice it's done this pretty incredible thing. It's actually analyzed the code. It's identified the business logic, what's happening on the UX, and it's pulled those apart into an MVVM controller. And so we can actually see, if we go highlight changes, as a developer, you know, as this thing's touching your code, you really want to see what happened to it. But it's now moved it so that the C# code can run on the server, and we can actually project that UI now out as HTML5. And that's a pretty unbelievable transformation. In fact, let's see that in operation. Here is that same app now running up on Azure. Notice I can go look at the Manage Customers form. So think about that. We've now taken an app from VB6
there you go.
through WinForms. Now we're projecting it out into the cloud, running logic up on the server, and then projecting it on a client. And there's some really cool things you get to do once you can project this thing out as HTML5.
Yeah, let me take the final step. Let's take it onto the phone here. So now we're taking that old VB6 app and taking advantage of the CSS work and the rest of what's been done. We can now run this, not beautifully, but well, on this phone. So we've gone a long, long way from that application to this phone in basically a short amount of time. Didn't take much at all to do this.
It's pretty incredible to be able to use CSS and these transformations to create a touch-friendly version of that app with very, very little touch on the part of the developer.
And so that's an area where I want to transition over and just say, first, thanks to Tom Butt and the team for letting us show this for the first time today. And then there's a whole set of Visual Studio integrated partners that are out there. You know, Scott and his team talked about Visual Studio. They mentioned the work we're doing with Xamarin when we think about going cross-platform. Icenic's a new partner there, Perfecto Mobile. In this case, the work we're doing with Tom and his team. So Visual Studio is a great tool, but we also work really well with partners to make sure that tool set can expand and work in as many different areas as are important to you. And so that's a place we want to continue to invest. Now, I'd say one last sort of connection point in sort of reusing assets, and then we'll move forward. And that's all about the embedded space. The embedded space, yesterday Terry talked a little bit about the Internet of Things. In many ways, that's sort of thought about today as the consumer side and all the cool, you know, wearables and things people are doing. But there's a ton of embedded devices that exist today in the retail space. If you think of point-of-sale systems, when you go use your ATM, there's some good old-fashioned Windows code in most of those things, .NET in particular. Depending on the device that you're using, there's likely, if it's a commercial device, a handheld device, manufacturing device, healthcare, there's likely embedded software there. And that's an area we will continue to invest going forward, and Terry talked about that. But we're also continuing to invest in some of the areas that are probably a little less, I'll say, sexier out there. So there are many of the devices that have no UI. And in the devices that have no UI, there's something called the .NET Micro Framework. We're continuing to invest in the .NET Micro Framework. We're going to bring it forward, so we're updating language support for generics. We're improving the runtime performance. We're going to make it modern Visual Studio integration. And we've open sourced this as well, so other people can work on it. So we're going to continue to invest in this area and make sure for folks working in the embedded side, we do a great job, not just on the new things, which we're about to get to, but also on the existing. In terms of new things, embedded goes pretty well there as well. So John.
Yeah, there we go.
So Akai and Newmark, this is an example of sort of a very modern, we could do this all day, a very front-end side to the embedded space. These are musical instruments. Skrillex uses these, Dr. Dre, and so Dr. Shu as well takes advantage of these. And this is the other end of the embedded space. And another area in terms of working with developers, there's a lot of opportunity. This is not something you might generally think about as a Windows device. Yesterday, Terry had the piano, so keeping with the Windows theme. I want to thank Akai and Newmark for letting us sort of give a sneak peek of these today and keeping the music theme going. And so embedded, sort of the last piece where I want to talk about sort of bringing assets forward. Now, let's switch gears. You know, John, in the mobile and cloud apps first area, there's lots of different things that we do. There's lots of different types of applications. Where's a good starting point for this discussion?
Yeah, one of the things about developers as they look into the mobile and cloud first world, there's a lot of options out there. And so one of the questions that we often get asked is, well, why focus on the Windows platform? And typically, the cases that we're seeing where developers are coming to us are those that involve the need for a very wide range of capabilities, especially in the enterprise and with things like integration. A great example of this is actually some work we've been doing with Delta Airlines, and they've been teaming with Jefferson Boeing in order to put this together. Now, Steve, you were involved in this project, so kind of describe what Delta wanted.
Well, I think this is a good bridge between existing assets and going forward. Delta wanted to take advantage. Look, people are using the Jefferson app in cockpits today. You see it on the iPad. But part of what's important for them is to not just take advantage of technology in the cockpit, but also in the backside of the plane where people are taking orders and they have the cashless flights today. But also in the mechanics area, being able to do manuals online. And then just as importantly, hooking into all the back-end systems. So what we did is we worked with Jefferson. We got the app running pretty easily on the Windows device. Here's a Surface device. This is my flight from Seattle down to San Jose. We can blow it up a little bit. If we want to, we can add some information. And the nice thing for the pilots, look, it's very performant. They like the performance. We've had 700 pilots work with it already, getting great feedback. If I need to look at the manuals, typically, pilots used to carry a big flight bag and they had to carry all the manuals. Here now I can just open the manual if I want for North America. I can open it up side by side. So pretty simple example of taking advantage of the device and the software and moving into a cloud-first, mobile-first world. But it's not just this device. It's the combination of the new devices connecting to the existing system. And I've talked to Richard Anderson, the CEO. He's very, both pleased with what we're doing, but really looks forward to how to make all of these pieces come together and take advantage of how the world's moving forward. Now, that's one direction you can take in terms of sort of, cloud devices or cloud and mobile. Let me go to another one. Let me come back to the slides real quick. Autodesk. Many of you might be familiar with AutoCAD. Great desktop application. Still have it. It does great. We love it, in particular sort of with high fidelity inking and some of the other work they do. But part of how they've moved forward is to build a complementary set of applications and services. Pixlr photo editing, 123 3D modeling, the Autodesk AutoCAD 360. And so they not only maintain their existing assets, but they build a complementary set of services. And these are services that I'm happy to announce they're going to bring these to Windows. They're going to make sure we do a good job of connecting existing and future. And we see this often. This is work we've done. Intuit, for example, having a Mint service to complement their services. Office started here, Adobe. And so this is a way to take existing assets and complement them in a cloud mobile first world. So those are sort of two line of business applications started in the area. Let's switch gears now. Let's go into, I'll say, let's start with social, and let's pick up from some conversations last year. Last year, we announced Flipboard was coming to Windows. And since then, they've done a great job bringing it to Windows 8. And you actually worked on this app with them. Did you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, so when we sat down with the Flipboard team, they had many great mobile apps out there, and they had been doing a lot of work to make sure that their web properties were able to provide a good experience in HTML5. And so as we looked to bring this and release this last year, one of the key things that we did was we came up with a way to do the hybrid application, leveraging a lot of that web content, and yet do a really great experience in terms of the flipping of the app. And so we got that stuff all running. Then,
I'm going to switch sides with you.
Yeah. Then what happened was that the team wanted to take all of that investment that they had done, those projects, and they wanted to evolve it forward and bring it to the phone, and we're pretty excited to show this.
Yeah, so this is a technology preview. Eric and Mike were kind enough to let us show this. App's not done. This is, again, just taking the technology and leveraging what we saw yesterday in terms of Kevin Gallo being able to move code across devices. Here you see same Flipboard app, great experience in the UI. You'll notice we go down, shading, shadows, moves really nicely, very performant. And the nice thing is it's easy now to go across the devices. And in this case, with a real partner-based application, technology preview of that application. And John, you've got another device?
Yeah, well, let me just say a second about what we did here. In order to get this great experience that they were looking for, our teams partnered, and we took that code base forward, and we actually started taking advantage of DirectX and C++. And so I actually have something pretty interesting to show here. This is a Nokia 520. This is actually one of the lowest end devices. I picked one of these things up in the store the other day for 60 bucks. 512 memory, check this out. The experience, the flipping on this thing is incredibly fast. It's super performant. And this is really a great example of developers using the entirety of the tool chain. Web technologies on the server, .NET, C#, DX, C++ in order to really create an unbelievable experience at even the lowest end device.
Perfect. John is here. So we appreciate the help from the Flipboard team. Now to switch gears, last year we showed for the first time, just announced, we showed Foursquare coming to the tablet for the first time. They chose to bring it to the Windows tablet first because of the great experience that could be delivered. We didn't spend time last year on the phone app, but they have a great Windows Phone app. We'll wait for a second, let that pop up on the screen. And so what we want to do now is take the app that it's in existence already and then build on what Kevin and the team showed us yesterday in terms of some of the new APIs coming for Windows Phone 8.1 in this case, or sorry, Windows Phone 8 in this case. I call it blue, I don't know what to call it anymore. And bring it forward. So John, you want to take us on this one?
Yeah, well, I may have a little problem. Speaking of all those explosions, I do not, oh, do I have mouse? I don't have mouse.
Not a mouse.
Let's see. This might be a little tricky to do without, don't even have keyboard. Oh,
there we go.
No, that's not me. I'll have somebody's got the mouse backstage. So let me just talk through this. What I've got here is
I warned you, to be fair.
This is remote control coding. Never been done before. So what we've got here is
voice-activated coding.
I've got a Silverlight project, and the way I got to there is I right mouse button clicked on the previous Windows Phone 8 project that they had, and I did one quick click, which was to do the new retarget to Windows 8.1. And the cool thing about this is that we took their existing code, and this is the actual Foursquare code. And what's really cool about this is the second you do that thing, you get this project, and now you get full namespaces. So if I were to type in here, windows.devices. Geolocation, the voice recognition is incredible here.
Hey, it proves it's real.
Yeah. What we're seeing is the ability to bring in all these new capabilities. Now, Foursquare, one of the things that they really wanted to be able to do was create a more engaging experience. They love the live tiles. They saw what we were doing with 8.1 around geofencing, and they thought, wow, the ability to have literally thousands of these geofences, we could use that to do something pretty cool. So if you look up here, inside these projects, the way a geofence works is it's actually a little extra program that kind of runs alongside, gets packaged with the main app, and it runs in the background, and it does the simplest thing. Whenever we move in and out of one of these geofences, the run operation gets called here, and that run operation does a pretty simple thing. It looks to see what the list of venues are nearby. So what's the various restaurants, what are the various points of interest. Now, the way you go create one of these geofences is incredibly simple. If we go to the part of the code where we create one of these things, set new geofence, notice all we do is we create a circle, we create the new geofence, we've got 10 seconds in here so that we're not bouncing around too much, and then we go and add that thing to our list of geofences. That's it. We've got geofences now, literally thousands of them sitting around. So actually, we have an emulator here. Let's pull that up. Let's start up the Foursquare app, just see where kind of we are. Now, I won't talk too much about kind of the existing app that's out there. Let's close it. We'll go back to the start screen. And now let's go navigate over here to Union Square. And watch what happens. A couple seconds go by, it notices we've entered Union Square, and watch what happens to the live tile. All of a sudden, these things start to pop up. It finds the various venues. So it's a great example of one of our partners who's really pushing the envelope in terms of those engaging experiences. So we're really excited to be partnering with them to solve these kind of problems.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of interest in this space. We spent some time with Condé Nast, and you think about a magazine in food and marketplaces and restaurants. Again, the notion of using geofencing and Bluetooth LE, very popular with existing apps that are out there. Let's switch gears. Let me go to the other end. This is a partner we've never shown before. New technology coming. The name of the company is Hepsilon, and the app is Sensoria. I'm going to get started. What I have is I have a sock on that has basically pressure sensors, and I have this nice little Bluetooth LE emitter down here that's running along. I'm going to start the session. Now, they're going to work on, obviously, nicer pieces of hardware over time. Let me make sure this guy's on. Yep. And so I'll start walking around. It takes about 10 seconds to load. And there you see, as I walk, I only have the sock on my left foot. Then you see the information as I'm walking around, and it gets the pressure points. And if I'm running, it's a little more active than what I'm doing now. And then what you can do is you can connect in, and for example, I could grab a coach. So if I want to have a coach and give me feedback as I'm wearing my headsets, I can also look at running form feedback and give performance information. For purposes of speed, let's take a look at performance analysis. What it's doing now is it's looking at basically a quote run I did earlier, which in my case is as close to a lumber or we'll call it a fast walk, and we'll be good with that. But I can run along here, and you'll see the pressure on my foot. And as I start to slow down, we'll get a little coaching.
You're losing your cadence. Speed up now.
It's not really, usually it says move your fat, you-know-what along, but you get the idea. It's really, when we talk about the Internet of Things, we're mixing a lot of pieces here together. Bluetooth LE emitter, socks with fibers in it that read pressure, new applications, and then there's a bunch of cloud on the back end of this, John.
Yeah, so the amazing thing about this application, I mean, think about these new kinds of devices, fitness bands, all these threads throughout your clothing. There's a huge amount of telemetry going on. So our partner has they've used Azure for all kinds of stuff. Azure Blobs, SQL Azure for data. They're doing authentication. They're using the Azure Service Bus in order to do all the communications between these things. Elasticsearch for data extraction. Lucene to do the real-time analytics. It kind of goes on. Hadoop and various other things. So really, you look at these kind of apps, it's a bunch of small devices, but they're really doing big data in the most powerful way.
Yeah. So that's an interesting bridge into the cloud side of things and sort of apps on the front end, clouds on the back end. Now, I want to run a video. It's interesting. Many folks think again about when you work with Microsoft, is it all or none? This is a good example of a partner, John Gruber from Daring Fireball. Great partner. Now, they build a phenomenal iOS app, right, for your iPhone. They don't build any Windows apps. Yet, based on some of the services we have a great partnership. So let me go ahead and roll this video.
Vesper is a note-taking app for the iPhone, and it emphasizes elegance and simplicity.
We shipped 1.0 just before WWDC last year, and it was local only.
And starting on the next day, every single day, the #1 feature request has been sync.
Well, my first thought was, I don't want to run an actual server. I don't want to do that. Life's too short. I have to write code. We chose mobile services because we wanted the highest level system and just use the standard open source tools that Mac developers are used to using. At one point, we realized that we do need to send email. Right there within Azure, there's a little store with a bunch of third-party services. And so we were able to get set up with SendGrid right away. Basically, do SendGrid send some email, and it worked. Not only am I finding what I want, I'm finding stuff I didn't even know I wanted, and then wanting it.
Azure gives us a sweet spot between ease of use and not having to be sysadmins installing OS updates, worrying about security updates, worrying about the latest version of the software. That stuff just happens. Using Azure saved us a ton of development time.
It means I could write the fastest and most efficient syncing possible. Because the experience we want for our users is that they don't even notice syncing. It just happens. It's magical.
We have so many options in front of us for where we go next with Vesper. We could build an iPad version. We could build a Mac version. We can build a web app version. All of that is predicated on having a fast, reliable sync backend, and that's what we get from Azure.
Thank you to John and team. Great job by them. So we'll give them a quick hand. Thanks. I've been told often I should pause and breathe occasionally, but I'm not very good at that. So that's a great example of a partner who's doing nothing on the device side with us, but Azure just made sense. And starting at that point in time, we were able to connect and line up, and it's been a win-win on both sides. Now I want to switch gears to a different partner. This is Chris and our friends at Gobbler. And Gobbler is a service for musicians, and I'll say creatives of all types. And it's really interesting because when you think about layers of abstraction, you know, Scott starts sort of at storage and compute and networking, and he works his way up to media and mobile. These guys are a layer above that. They're trying to solve the need of a particular end user community using a set of services. And in this case, they were already running on Amazon using Ruby on Rails, Ubuntu, MongoDB, deployed with Chef. And we worked with them, and I'll let you, watch the feedback from Chris and team as we run this video from Gobbler.
The process of creating music today has become more complicated than it's ever been before because of the advent of all of these digital tools. The result of that is that you have a lot of data and a lot of complexity, and artists in the end are much more interested in spending time making stuff than they are managing stuff. With Gobbler, what we've done is we basically said, let us be the communication layer between you and your collaborators. Let us handle the data for you. Let us make sure that all the project files that you need to do your work and the person you're collaborating with, you always have it at the same time.
My name is Danny Masterson. I'm an actor and a DJ, and I own a studio in Hollywood called Bronson Island. When we're making files on Pro Tools or Logic or Ableton, we have these massive files. With Gobbler, we can basically send files back and forth without having to download these massive piles of information and just sort of get the ghosts of them and be able to adjust and then send it back up to the cloud.
Gobbler is probably one of the greatest tools that I have. It really expands the reach of being able to work with people all over the world. I recently did a band from London, and we actually did the record via Gobbler.
When we looked at switching over to Microsoft Azure, we said, okay, well, how much work is it going to be for us to actually have to do that? Because we've actually taken a lot of pride in what we've built, and it's very specific to what we do. But as it turns out, Microsoft's thought about that for people and made it so that however you think your platform should work inside of their infrastructure, there's a way to do that. It was actually really easy to make the move because everything that we needed was already there.
So, Chris and his team doing a great set of work. I hope you guys caught Danny this morning as the DJ. We want to thank him for doing that for us. That was a real nice addition. So now that we're on the cloud side, let's switch into gaming, because real interesting area. And we saw a little bit this morning on some of the Xbox games and using the cloud on the back end for assistance. What I want to do now is switch gears and talk a little bit about, in this case, sort of PC gaming and the notion of using cloud assistance for desktop PC gaming, whatever term you want to use.
Yeah, so I've got a pretty interesting thing here. This is a new prototype we're working on. This is coming out of the labs. This is running on a high-end machine, and notice like what I'm about to start doing here. I am going to start blowing this building apart. Now, the cool thing about this is not scripted. This is full-on deformation of this building. Now, things are pretty cool here, but I've actually rigged this building to blow. And what I mean by that is we're going to just start destroying the whole building. And so, whoops, don't move the mouse, John. You'll notice that the building is starting to come down. And watch that frame rate. The frame rate is dropping. We are doing an incredible number of calculations on the physics, the geometries, the rotation of all these objects as it's going down, and you'll see that this really overwhelms this machine. Now, Steve's got the same app running over here, but we're doing something a little bit different. We're using the cloud and a collection of devices to do cloud computation. And why don't you start blowing this building apart?
I'm going to start shooting this building up. And here, like, these are high-end main gear gaming rigs. These aren't small machines. And so they're high-end. But when you get to this level...
All right, let's detonate the building.
All right, I'll start the detonation.
And notice, this thing is running much, much faster for Steve already. And even after he detonates the building, notice the building's starting to come apart. He can now wander around. Like, let's go run around various other parts. Like, there's some great stuff in this environment. Yeah, this thing's really cool. Shoot this thing down. But think about this.
Be fair, I like to shoot anything, moving or not, but that's a separate conversation.
Everything in this entire environment can be blown apart. And what we're really seeing is the power of the cloud to enable new kinds of experiences that have never been possible. Even if we had multiple high-end machines and these things we're talking, they couldn't do the kind of bandwidth that they're doing. So what's happening? The computation's going on in the cloud. We're sending those rotations, the positional information, down to the clients where the rendering's getting done. I think it's a really great example of the power of the cloud.
No, a real nice compliment. And this is a good connection into PC gaming overall. We're continuing to... that thing is dead.
2 frames per second.
How to kill a big machine. We're continuing to work on investments for the PC gaming community. I want to, we were down here at GDC, it was a week and a half ago. We've got a great set of partners who are continuing to innovate and build phenomenal PC games. This is the Wargaming guys, and they're doing a great job. There's a whole set of developers and partners. We just want to say, first, thank you. They do a great job. 2, we're continuing to make investments, and we're going to do as good a job as we can to make sure PC gaming as a class of applications, we do a great job for. And I think the Cloud Assist here we're showing is a piece of that. I would say this is an area where we're listing, and we're going to do more and want to be a great partner and continue to move this area forward. So, since we're in gaming, let's take one more step forward. I'm going to wander over here, and let's move on. Last year when we came here, for the first time we showed WebGL running in IE11. And my memory was a Khan Academy demo that Terry picked up the other day. This is sort of picking up on that. Now here, we just got this nice room that we can sort of scroll around in. Super performant, looks great. What I want to do is what Kevin did show yesterday. Let me bring up my phone here, open it up. This is now taking that same capability, same IE11, and instead of searching for fish, I'm going to set up a virtual joystick. Oops. Set the camera up, and now I can move my head around here if I want with the right trigger or right key, and now I can move around. So now I have a very cool virtual engine here in IE11 running based on the same code, and it moves super smoothly. It works great. I think this is pretty cool, but I know you're standing over there because you want to show me up. So go ahead.
Look, doing this kind of stuff is pretty amazing, but what's, I think, one of the more interesting things happening in the industry today is the just incredible rate of advance in the JavaScript libraries. We happen to have the Babylon library up here on the screen, and notice that that entire experience that Steve was just playing with was actually created in 12 lines of code. We've got the Babylon thing, go and create in the canvas, we load the scene, we attach a camera to it, and then we run the render loop, which is pretty amazing that people are able to pull this kind of content together in the app. But I actually can go take this a little bit further. Notice I've got this little button down here called the Go Big button. Now, Steve, you were at GDC last week. What was the big deal there?
I was at GDC. And so are some of the heads-up display virtual reality headsets. They were killer. Chance to play with these things, it's just it's a whole nother environment. So if if you want, see what you can do from Oculus side.
Yeah, now check this out. Here's the documentation for Babylon.js. There's one line of code here. Just copy that. I'm going to go drop that into that button. And now check this out. Ready? Control V. I'm now going to run this thing. Ready, Steve?
Yep.
All right, it's going to load up the environment.
Okay.
That's all good. We saw this before, but now let's go big. Check this out.
All right.
So this is Steve using the Oculus Rift in WebGL on a PC. And I think we're up to 13 lines of code at this point in time.
Yeah,
now the
it's
thing,
super cool. In fact,
the thing that's
I'm
incredible
here,
about
John,
this,
you run the rest of the keynote.
Yeah. Don't trip.
It's funny. I feel like I'm
one of the
edge.
keys to making this experience work is that we're able to handle this loop at 200 hertz. Any of the other browsers out there today don't have that kind of cycle time, but it's also the entirety of the PC ecosystem. The USB, the high-end rendering, all of those things are combining together to let developers create these new kind of experiences with an incredibly low amount of effort. So we're pretty excited about the work that's gone on in WebGL and our ability to push these things forward.
Thanks. Nice work, John. That was good stuff. Okay, so we covered lots of different entry points for sort of mobile first, cloud first. We did cloud side, we did app side, we ended on some gaming. Let's switch gears now to the last area, which is maximizing the number of devices I reach, cross-platform, pick the term you want to use. But in this case, let's start within the Windows family, and then we'll spread out in terms of the opportunity to reach other devices. So first thing I want to do is I wanted to do this demo, to be quite honest with you, especially the last part when you watch, but apparently the insurance for this particular venue said no. So we've been working with GoPro, and one of the things they're very happy about is how easy it is now to start to bring their application, they have a phone app already, across all of the different devices, including Xbox. So in this case, I'm just going to run the video.
Hello again. Hello, my boy. Hello, my boy.
I know we would have gotten good cred for bringing the lion on stage. That would have been a winner. Next year, we'll have to consider how we do that. So thanks to the folks at GoPro. You saw some in-app merchandising in there as they think about the app. And the feedback is, look, with the Common Core, this is much, much easier to do. Let's pick another one. We'll do one more here. Let's go to gaming. This is Doodle God 2. So we're happy to release the next generation of Doodle God today. And we have it running here. First instantation is the phone. Got it. And so here I can start all over. I can add fire and drag it up here and burn holes. I can put some lakes in. Continue to build my environment out from scratch. Now, phone's the first part. Second device we have it running on is the Xbox. And there's my Xbox controller for this. And same basic principle here. If you played Doodle God before, what do I want to work on here? Let's take some fire. Let's place some fire out in the middle. That never works. So let's go find some sand. Well, John's going to yell at me there. I'll burn the grass for right now. So Doodle God 2 on the Xbox. And now third, John, you have it running over there on the PC.
Yeah, as you can see, this is running on the PC. I can also burn grass. Check it out. Look at that. Burning the grass. Now, we
like to burn things.
Yeah. We're supposed to have fire,
shooting,
explosions.
burning,
yeah, exactly.
and lions. All right, we're on a roll.
Now, what's really cool about this is Joybits, when they built this app, they really wanted to maximize the experience. And so this is a group that really goes down to the metal. So there's C++, DirectX throughout this. But when you think about the opportunity here, what's incredible about this particular application, you're seeing it on the phone, you're seeing it on Xbox, you're seeing it on the PC. It's an identical set of files. Like, I have 3 projects here. Every single file is completely identical. Now, one of the things that they did want to do, if I go into the runtime and I look at the rendering code here, notice that they've got a couple of if-defs in there. This if-def, let's see, here's one, Windows Phone platform. Notice the difference here. They're on the phone, they're using a fixed set of vertices. On the Xbox and on the PC, they're actually varying that so that they can do a better job with the fidelity of the objects, better textures, that kind of thing. But it really points out the ability to take an investment and spread it across all of these different kinds of devices into these different environments. But there's a little bit more here, right?
Yeah, this thing clearly, if you're going to do this kind of work, last year we showed with Unity sort of running across platform and having sort of Azure on the back end help us. I assume with this one they've done the same.
Yeah, so the incredible thing that they've done is Joybits does this across all their games. They use the cloud, Azure, to go connect together various aspects of the games. So for example, you can be on one device, pick up on another device. They use it to find other players. So the cloud really empowers these next generation experiences. It's a great example of a company kind of going cross-device and in the cloud to produce the next generation experience for their users.
Okay, so thank you for that one. That's a very cool, demonstration. We appreciate Joybits letting us use it. Now let's start going cross-platform. I think people would assume the first thing we do is pull out an iPhone or an, but that's been done, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Let's go the other direction. Last year here we announced a partnership with Oracle and the ability to bring Java to Azure as basically supported by Oracle. And so what I want to do now is hand off to John and show a little progress in that area.
Yeah, so the Oracle partnership's really been great. One of the things that you just saw in the last demonstration from Guthrie was this new portal. And one of the things that we've got in here, they show the creation of a website. All I've done is I've created a new website, and if I go to the site settings, I want to show you how easily we're now able to take advantage of Java. And this is the first time we're demonstrating this. Are you ready, Steve? Here we go.
Go for it. Time.
There. All right. Hold on. Let me hit save there. All right. That's it. That's everything necessary for you to go enable Java on Java websites. Notice we've got Tomcat, Jetty. And just to kind of illustrate this, here's a very typical kind of starter application that a lot of people use. Yeah, the Java Pet Shop. Take the WAR file, drop it up onto Azure, and now here is that app up and running, up on Azure. We can browse through there. We can go look at the fish.
Can you buy lions?
No lions to be bought here. But you guys get the idea. We've made Java just incredibly turnkey. All of that existing code, all of that existing investment that you have, you can now bring very easily and in a supported platform way.
All right, and I think that's a good place to start. I think, the web and web technologies give us a great ability to go really, really broadly cross-platform. All right, and so why don't we start with another application. There's a partner out there we have called Excella. They keep track of a huge amount of civic information. So if you make changes to your property or your house or anything sort of around your home, and I'll call it your homestead, they keep that information. And it's a very, very rich set of data and information. They make it available up on the cloud through a site called civicdata.com. And what they want to do is they wanted to partner with us to try and make it accessible to developers, so that developers could actually use that data inside of applications. Typically, this takes a bunch of work. You need a front door to this data. We do this work on, but it's a lot of work. It's not a small piece of work. And so you worked with them on this.
Yeah. So one of the things that happened was we got together with Excella, and as we talked about the kind of applications that they wanted to build, they wanted their partners to be able to build, we said, hey, we could help you create those kind of applications. So here's an example of an app that's actually powered by the data that Excella produces. But notice these apps typically have a lot of things going into them. In this case, we've got news coming in. We've got reports coming from an ERP system. We've got integration with identity. So pulling all that together from these different sources is often one of the most difficult challenges that companies face. So to kind of illustrate what's going on here, let me go behind the scenes. And what we've done, as Steve mentioned, is we actually have a set of front door machines. These are machines spread out around that actually take the inbound requests. And as you can see, here's a deployment. And it's picking up that Relic Cloud application. But what it's doing is this very interesting thing. There's a couple of roles that we've configured. This is all code that's available to you. And notice what we're doing. Underneath the data portion of the URL, we're going out to Azure Mobile Services. For the news, we're going out to Amazon Web Services and we're picking it up off of that. For the reports, we're using a Java-based ERP system to pull this together. Now, I was talking to the CEO of Vigil last night, and he was describing how, as they do mergers and acquisitions, it becomes really important for them to be able to pull together all of these different pieces and put them into their application. And they're really struggling with it. The idea of being able to use this approach is very exciting, where they can have common identity across many services, where they can do common monitoring, common deployments, A/B testing. All of that integration is available. All of this code that you're seeing, we're going to have out on the blog post. This is actually live today in CodePlex. It's a turnkey way to use the powerful capabilities already in Windows Server with the application request routing, ARR, and on Azure. Simple one-click deployment from the portal. We think it's a great way to go pull together and composite apps in the cloud.
Good stuff, John. Nicely done. Now, that's sort of a step. Let's keep going forward. Last year after Build, I was at another conference, and we announced a set of templates that allow you to take web experiences like this and websites and very simply host them as a mobile application. So you can turn them into a mobile application, put them into the store, and make them available then as both a web experience or website and an app. So we should be able to do that with this one.
Right. So here's the app. Here's the URL for this web app. And I'd love to be able to just copy that and create a mobile application. So we're very excited to announce today that we have a new tool called App Studio that's out there that will do this. You simply provide it some information, and it will go generate the appropriate packages for you to go drop into stores. But let me actually kind of go under, again, let's go under the covers here a little bit. And the thing that the App Studio project does is it produces one of these things we call the web app template. The web app template, again, open source code. You can see all the code that gets generated. But it's largely driven by a config file written in JSON. And watch what I'm going to do here. I'm simply going to drop that URL in for that web app. There's various configurations you can put in here. You don't have to do any of this stuff by default. We've just set one or two of them. And now I just run this thing. And now, there we go. There's a Windows 8 app that was generated from that website. So just that simple, all available to you now.
Right. Thank you, John.
So, well, there's more here, Steve.
All right, let's keep going.
Just to kind of look around here a little bit, you know, this thing's integrated with things like the drop downs, the touch, and all that kind of stuff. Now, one of the things, people have done this kind of thing before where they wrap up a website. There's some challenges.
Yeah, there's one problem when you take a website and you want to make it sort of the foundation for your application. When there's no web, there's no app,
He's
John.
just unplugged the network.
Sorry.
Yeah, so watch what happens on this app.
Yeah, not so good.
That's not the best experience, and so if you're building this kind of thing, you really don't want this to happen. You want the app to be responsive, whether you're online, whether you're connected and disconnected. So why don't you plug us back in?
I'll plug you back in, John. Sorry.
Yeah, and let me close this app up, and I'm going to show you a cool new feature that's been just released. It's now live on the web, and it's this new section right here called Offline. And what we've done is we've enabled the super cache. So we're going to turn this on to be true. And I'm going to add one more thing. I'm going to inject back into the system the HTML5 capability called IndexedDB. So we're going to turn on the ability to store data locally. And are you ready for this? Here is that same app now up and running. And notice, don't unplug me yet. I just want to wander around here for a second. I'm going to go look at properties near me. That's going to load things into IndexedDB. I'm going to go maybe look at one of these properties. I'm going to go back home. And now I'm navigating around and everything seems good. And I can even update this stuff on the cloud. Now, here's the cool thing. Let's go back home and let's have Steve just
one more time.
And notice, watch what's happening to the upper corner where it says caching. We're about to go offline. We are now fully offline. Everything that was cached, all the navigation I did, it's still there. So notice the Bing Maps integration. We have just taken a website and we've really transformed it very quickly into a fantastic mobile application. And the code's all there. You can take it, you can do anything that you want with this and really push the experience any way you want. That's pretty cool.
Nice work, John. So let's take it the final step. If you're going to go devices, why don't you show it on that device and I'll wander over here.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty cool to be able to take a website, turn it into a mobile app. We can do it on Windows 8. Here is that same app now running on the Windows Phone, which I think is pretty neat. Now notice one of the things that we did was we used a responsive interface so that we get appropriate layout. So this technique works best when the developer has really focused on building a great mobile application. And so this is a good example of going across the Windows device. Steve, you got something?
Yeah, so here's I'll just call it a non-Windows device. This is a nice HTC One. And you'll notice if I open up and come into the device, here is that same app. So as John's noted, using the web and the web tool chain for going cross-platform, very easy to do. And I think the work John's done with the templates they're building to turn websites into apps, to make them work offline, and then to bring them into stores, both for Windows and non-Windows, super piece of work. I'd say great job, John.
Yeah, now I've got one more thing to show here.
Okay.
So This technique has been used by a bunch of our partners. We've been working with a number of companies. This one happens to be the app created by a company called Zoopla. They're the leading real estate company in the UK. Notice that they've got this great experience. You can zoom in, you can interact with the application. These kind of apps, when done right, with things like the offline support and those capabilities, we can take web content, bring it to mobile applications, and create 4-star plus experiences in the store.
All right, great job by the team on that one. Yeah, come on, give them a little applause.
All right.
They've been coding that for about 9 months. All right, so one last thing I wanted to do, picking up from yesterday, so that was using the web tool chain.
Yep.
Now, Kevin did a nice job, Gallo, yesterday, showing one of his apps and taking it across Windows devices. And Scott talked about Xamarin this morning. So what we thought we'd do is we'd take that application and we'd work with the Xamarin guys, and overnight, what we do is we'd bring it cross-platform. In this case, I've actually got Kevin Gallo's app, running now on my iPad. And so basically overnight, using the combination of the universal Windows project and then taking that with the Xamarin folks, we brought it all the way over very quickly. Can you see that all right?
And I think that's really the notion of universal that we're looking for. So here's that same app now running on an Android device. Again, started with that Windows Universal app, partnered with the Xamarin team, and literally my team overnight, we just took that app that Kevin had produced, and we've now got all of this stuff running.
Right. So I think in this case, nice piece of work by the team. Thank you to Xamarin, helping us out there. Miguel and the team. So with that, I wanted to make sure and point out the fact that if you look across a lot of the things we've shown today, there are a set of SDKs for iOS and Android from Azure, Office 365, Skype, Active Directory. We even have a division, Microsoft Open Technologies, that spends all its time working in the open source community, both contributing out as well as working with partners who want to work with us. So there's a lot of API sets, SDKs, and work being done for cross-platform, and we want to make sure we're doing a good job of getting that out to you and making sure you can get access to it, I'll say, easily. So with that, let me do two things. First, hopefully in less than an hour, which we've done a good job of covering, supporting a broad set of your existing technologies, whether it's mobilize.net or connecting to Office 365. Lots of entry points in a cloud and mobile first development. Could be on the device side, could be on the cloud side, could be starting from scratch or building something on top of what you have. And then lastly, working across not just the Microsoft set of devices and services, but whether it's Java on the back end or an iPad on the device end, making sure we can do a great job working with you with our stuff, but also doing a great job working with you across all of the devices, services, and partners you want to work with. So with that, I want to thank our partners, great partners helping us show off a variety of demos today. There's also, with the announcement, I had one announcement earlier today with Autodesk, but there's 3 others, Airport, City, Star Walk, and Rollerblade. Apps coming into the store literally today, so every day we're working with partners, bringing new apps to the store. And with that, A, giant thank you. B, I hope we see you all tonight. The party's at the Metreon. It's right around the corner here, 6:30 to 9:30. So with that, have a great rest of the day. Thank you so much. Googs and Shoe, and we're out of here.
Thanks very much.